A little about us. We're your at-home interactive weekly geek con, all blended with wit, sarcasm, and a pub-like atmosphere. We're adults talking about adult topics and using adult language. We laugh and make jokes about almost everything. We don't intend to upset, but some folks have their feelings hurt easily. This is all done with wit, sarcasm, and a pub-like atmosphere. We're adults talking about adult topics. Richard Pryor, Robin Williams, Wanda Sykes, Sam Kinison, George Lopez, Lisa Lampanelli, Chris Rock, and others. So grab your vice of choice, sit back, relax, and get ready to enjoy yourself in the company of great people, hot toddies, and guests alike, because here we come.
Put that long day behind you, good times lie ahead. With company worth keeping, that'll bash a smile on your head. Come on in, the door's open, you'll find just the finest folks here. Pull up a chair, grab a drink, and let our stories your ear. Cause we're the talk the tavern. Here you're always welcome. The talk the tavern. Promising beer and bedlam. The talk the tavern. Music, medicine, then some. The talk the tavern. The song's over. Here we come.
And welcome to April 4th episode of Talk of the Tavern. We're at our Middle-Aged Gamers show today. I said Wednesday, not Thursday, right? They're all muted.
I think so. Sorry, okay. I'm unmuted now.
I think it's Wednesday.
I know it's Wednesday. I just don't know if I said Wednesday. So, okay, I'm Travis Sivart. Today we have our special guest on. I'll get to him in just a moment. First, I want to introduce the lovely, delightful, tea-drinking Andrea of Night Owl Creations.
Yes, I drink tea, but right now it is coffee.
What kind
tea
of coffee
will be for the
it?
second hour.
What are you drinking? What kind of coffee?
Oh, I think it's Dunkin' Donuts. I don't remember what I put in the pot this morning.
Dark roast or medium roast? She has no idea.
Original.
And I'm drinking the same thing. That made that easy. Are you smoking anything today? You going to have a cigar or anything?
No, not today.
Well, I am. I've got... My vices today are the caffeine in the coffee, a La Gloriana Cubana Series R Black. I just love those and got a great deal on them. Some water, some swearing, and some artistic, moody attitude. Now, our special guest is game designer Mike Myler, and we'll get to all his list of potential over the next 3 hours. So, Mike, how's it going? What do you got?
It's going pretty good. And I am perpetually powered by soda.
What's your flavor du jour?
Whatever's on sale this week. If it's not Coca-Cola, then I'll buy Wild Cherry Pepsi, but right now it's Coca-Cola.
Gotcha.
And then I smoke nail cigarettes that I roll myself, and I like Peter Stokeby, specifically Danish export.
Did you say nail cigarettes?
That's what I've been told they are called sometimes, because they tend to be thinner than the average cigarette unless you roll them fat.
Okay, so you...
And I would add that for people who are, smoke, Bolly Shag, Peter Stokeby, same guy.
Right. Well, company now, I guess.
Yeah, he left Bolly Shag, and then I don't even know if they're still making Bolly Shag, and he started making Peter Stokeby, so that's why I made the switch. But I used to smoke Bolly Shag.
I feel like there's a dirty joke in there every time you say Bolly Shag.
It's kind of a miracle that it became like a big thing, because that is quite a terrible name for something.
It's or great, depending on what kind of crowd you hang out
You'll
with.
remember it.
That's true. That's true. And by the way, Andrea, thank you for slamming stuff up on Instagram and Twitter as we go along here, letting people know that they can join us with no fear of anything, ever.
And I will also put links in the chat here, so no worries.
Very good. Oh, so I'm curious. Nail cigarettes, nail smokes, what are you calling them?
I just call them cigarettes, but colloquially I've been told they're called nails, yeah.
But is that pipe tobacco or is that cigarette tobacco?
No, it's cigarette rolling tobacco.
Okay.
Cigarette rolling tobacco. Yeah.
See, when I have my... Here, let me roll over here real quick and show you this. Oh, all right, hold on. I'm almost there.
When it was first mentioned to me, I think there was also an allusion to old people smoking their own rolled cigarettes.
See, that's a tin of pipe tobacco. So when you pulled it out, and Stokeby makes a lot of different pipe tobaccos also.
Yes, they do.
So when you were like, oh, I don't roll pipe tobacco, but you're showing me a pipe tobacco tin and mentioning a pipe tobacco guy, I'm like, well, now I'm confused. So yeah, I see what happened there. Okay, I didn't know they made. I've never smoked cigarettes, never had any interest or desire, and tried and went ew. And here I am with cigars, and pipes. I smoked 3 different pipes on yesterday's show, and
fun fact: Paizo Publishing paid for the first cigar I ever smoked.
Nice.
Nice.
On purpose?
Yeah.
Did they know they were like paying for?
I don't think Eric and the other people knew about it, but somebody I was with paid for our trip to the cigar bar because there's a nice cigar bar in Indianapolis. I shouldn't talk about it because it's moving on.
Wow. I don't know.
I don't want to give away the good secret. Like it's one of the only good places to go during the convention, and people get mad if I blow up the spot. So.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so you don't want to give them business because you're being nice to them?
Yeah, they don't need extra business. I don't think.
Okay.
They're good.
Well, you could talk about them without ever saying a name.
Yeah, I mean it was a nice cigar bar. It's in Indianapolis. It's very lush. The drinks are good. The cigars are great. I would recommend going.
Too.
What, Andrea?
Too.
Bear with us, guys. Andrea's connection seems to get goofy in daylight hours.
It's not working?
It was
now
a little
it's working.
traily. It works great now that you're upset, but when you were happy, it would just no. It's so make sure your I don't know, your phone's in the window or not near something big and metal that would block the. See, we saw that face. I'll have to find that and clip that.
The robots are working.
Hmm?
The robots are working against us.
They are. Darn our metal masters. Okay, what do we got here? What do we got? See if there's anybody we could say hello to. I see the Skipper family has joined us somewhat in the background, probably like yesterday. We'll start getting chit-chatty later in the show. It's one of our regulars. Great folks. Sent us Easter candy. I got some right here from them. Yay. Mike, I'll tell you what. Let's start with the stuff in case we have a few latecomers. Let's start with the stuff that it's not going to matter if they miss. In other words, not the meat of the potatoes of the conversation. But why don't you let all of us know a little bit about you, what you've done, where you came from, why you did it, what's your dog's name? I'm kidding. Dog or cat guy?
I had a dog when I was a kid. I'm a cat guy now.
I'm a cat guy, so we're okay. We're okay. Okay, so.
All right. Well,
yeah, how'd you get into gaming stuff?
So about 5.5, 6 years ago, I was working at a place, and I had a couple problems with him, and I confronted the owners like 4 times. I was like, I'm pretty sure you're stealing money from me. Do you just want to come clean? And they were like, no, of course not. We're not doing that. And then after an altercation at work, the Department of Labor showed up at my house, and they were like, hey, we're pretty sure your employer's stealing money from you. And I'm like, yeah, I was pretty sure of that too.
Wait,
so then it became a whole thing.
Came to your house?
Yeah, the Department of Labor came to my house.
How?
Because so many other people.
Yeah.
It wasn't an embezzlement thing. It was. I don't want to get into it.
I'm just.
But
yeah, okay.
End of the day, I was without a job, and I had like a small windfall, just barely under $500, because that's what Common Court. That's where the bar is. So they definitely cut some kind of deal. Whatever. And I wasn't sure what to do. And my wife was like, why don't you see if somebody wants to buy your D&D stuff you spend so much time working on? And so then I sold One Inventor, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I've just been doing that for the past 5 years now.
Okay. How long have you been gaming for?
Oh, since I was a wee lad. I think my first game where I really understood everything and what was going on, I was probably 11 or 12.
Okay.
So, 2 decades or so.
Oh, wow. You look great, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. I figured you were like, I don't know, 17. I'm kidding. Like mid-20s. So for 5 years, is that all you've been doing is designing and selling your games?
That's it. I crowdfund them, and it's not just my games. I work on a lot of stuff. There's over 150 titles that I've worked on. But the stuff that I have a weird relationship where, okay, so you can hire me to write stuff for your game. I'm very happy to do that. I do that for a lot of people. It's great. I also have 5 campaign settings that are mine, that I control every aspect of.
Gotcha.
But they are published by other people who license them from me.
Gotcha. And we'll get more into that in a little bit. It's because that we're gonna dig into it good and geek out over all kinds of gaming stuff. By the way, Andrea just posted MikeMyler.com. That's his website. Check it out. It is chock full of stuff, including quite a few freebies, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Let me see. There's Street Fighter D&D PDF.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm just thinking like, so every time I do a Kickstarter, I release free PDFs. So you find like 30 or 40 free PDFs from my Kickstarters. But then there's the stuff that I can't sell. I put on my website because I don't make any money off my website. So
right.
Like there's a 5th edition Street Fighter from Capcom PDF, and there's a 20 packs or 20 post series, and then like a Google document for taking Warhammer 40,000 and playing it in D&D 5th edition. Yeah. There's a Star Wars hack. There's a bunch of Marvel superheroes. There's a really cool D&D ancient Greece thing because that's what got me back in RPGs.
I saw that.
After college, I ran into the New Argonauts, which is written by Sean K. Reynolds, and it's this like really good hack for D&D 3rd edition where you play as like Perseus. Right. Like there are no wizards, there are no clerics. There's pretty much everyone's a fighter, a bard, or a rogue, and then like some people can be a Hellenistic sorcerer if they want, but that's the only magic class. And so I'm converting that to 5th edition, and check it out on the website.
Nice. And as everybody can see, Andrew is spamming the chat with the different things, so there's a lot of content to go through. That last one is the Kickstarter, and we're definitely going to be talking about that very shortly. Hold on while I adjust our screen here. There we go. I guess I can make my picture bigger so I fit more in the crowd here. Okay, so actually I had a question about something you were just saying. I should keep my notepad in front of me. So you've been... Nope, totally lost the question. It was going back to something else you were talking about.
When I started, I was just like a writer, and I ended up having to do project management to publish my first campaign setting. And then I was like, oh, wow, there's so many emails, and this is a lot of time managing people. And like even then, like everyone wants to have their own... Yeah, it is herding cats.
It is.
And like everyone should have their own artistic vision and contribution to a work. That's kind of what makes amalgamations really great. But I've been vertically integrating stuff, so at this point I can do everything for a book except for illustration. I still can't draw original illustrations. But I make my own maps, I do my own layout, I get all my own money, I make my own budgets, I manage the team, I make my own graphics, but I just can't draw stuff.
I have a similar issue where I can do raw sketches that look very raw, very sketchy. I can do maps. I can even do some cartoon type stuff, but I can't do it well enough to say I can illustrate a book.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm with you. Though I can lay something out for somebody who is an artist, and they'll look at what I drew and go, I know exactly what you need. You drew it well enough, and I can recognize what the different... But it doesn't mean it's quality. There you go. Andrea just said you're currently 40% funded on your Kickstarter. Let's get it to 50% before the end of the episode, and see if we can do that. That shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah, and we're still on track to fund, which is good. I've had worse spots in Kickstarters because like I ran one in December, and even Kickstarter will tell you like you probably don't want to run a Kickstarter in December. But we funded at the last moment, so
nice.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of really good metrics for Kickstarters, and basically, if you're halfway through your campaign and you haven't hit at least 33%, there's just no way statistically that you're gonna pull it out. So the smart thing to do is close your doors, tell everybody, come back in a week. We're gonna retool this and stuff. But yeah, we should be good for Imperial Matchmaker, which makes me very excited.
Good, excellent. Yeah, I've done a lot of Kickstarters or helped other people with theirs and whatnot, and I've had some failures and I've had some successes. Yeah, I definitely have an opinion on that. But like I'll tell anybody, it just matters who you can get in front of. That's the bottom line is,
Yeah.
Content, readability, clarity, that all helps. But the bottom line is getting it in front of enough people and making one click. So that's a magic of its own, because that is right place, right time, about a third of the time. So
Yeah.
okay, we're 15 minutes in. I figure let's get into the meat and potatoes here. So what do you start gaming with? What's your gaming background?
The very, very, very first game, I think I was 9, it was 2nd edition. The first game I really understood what was going on was 3.0, D&D.
Okay. Well, 3.0 was a lot easier than 2nd edition, which 2nd edition, for us old people, we just call it AD&D.
Yes.
Second
I
yeah.
have vague rememberings of someone trying to explain to my 9-year-old brain Fago, and it's just not clicking.
It was thanks to that I knew how to do algebra before I knew algebra existed.
Yeah.
So, of course they're introducing algebra in elementary school now, which they should have been doing back then too. But, okay, so with your stuff...
I also did
Go ahead.
I was going to say Crucible City, if anybody watching played Crucible City. It was, do you ever do any MUXs, multiple user interface stuff, or MUDs,
You talking
multiple
about
user
MUDs?
dungeon? Yeah, well, I mean, MUXs were MUDs without all the triggers.
What are the triggers? I never played MUDs, and I never played MUX. What is a trigger in that? I know what it is in modern society, and it scares me.
No, it's not like that. It's trigger like a programming language thing.
Gotcha.
So a MUD would be like an MMORPG, but it's all text.
Right.
Right?
Correct.
So everything will react to you as long as you hit the right command. I played those too, but the one that I was way into was a MUX, which was like more of a stratified chat room.
Gotcha.
Like a massive stratified chat room. And it was all based on the Mutes and Mastermind system. So you'd go in and run games for people, and there'd be like the dice rolling mechanics and everything built into the mush.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And Crucible City was the biggest one, so I brought up. Yeah.
it's just a couple years ago, I guess these regained some popularity.
Yes.
Not in the original form, but in the modern form, where we have, here's a website everybody can go into, log into the same chat room, and have the dice visuals, the graphics, and yeah, that was kind of nice, because it's hard to get a local group together now.
It's more akin to, I mean, like there are modern mushes and muxes, I think maybe even muds, that you can get into normally with like a very small paywall. But the it's more like play by post that was all contained inside of one room that had smaller rooms inside of it, I guess. It's hard to properly explain.
I got you.
It was really cool though. And I have an amazing story from that. Is it all right to start tangenting? Okay.
Oh yeah.
So
from moment one.
all told, there were probably at its height maybe 300 people playing on this mush. And the way it worked was you would get experience for running a scene or participating in a scene. And a scene is like a small session, right? So like
Gotcha.
the Joker or Joker equivalent is robbing the bank. And you grab a couple heroes that are online at the time that happen to be in the area. And then you run a small scene and you type out all the descriptions of everything that happens and you roll stuff out. And you can just like Roll20, but all text.
Right.
And then there were also global events. So you had to sign up for a lottery for global. Oh, Dr. Comics. Do you know who Dr. Comics is?
No.
His name is Jason Tondro. He actually has a doctorate in comics. It's about, his thesis was about the Round Table and the Justice League.
Gotcha.
He's brilliant. He's brilliant, and he just got hired by Paizo as a line editor, I think.
Nice.
So, way to go, Jason. He used to be one of the moderators for Crucible City, and his big global event was like interdimensional Nazis were attacking the Earth. Yeah. So, for the final, yeah, essentially the Kree, yeah, or the Skrull, but yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff that happens. They run global events. You're supposed to run scenes inside of it using like the Nazi tanks and stuff. And you entered the lottery. I got picked for the lottery to like play in the global event, and which is great because I was one of the most powerful characters on the server. I was playing this like knockoff Batman, Green Arrow,
Gotcha guy.
edgelord. He had an invisible jet that I always called the Super Stealth Jet in like all capital letters. So anyway, he flies it out to the Jupiter cannon with like 7 other heroes or whatever, and it's we've repelled them off the planet, and they're on the moons of Jupiter, and they have this big cannon they're going to fire on us. And he gets on the station. He's rolling around taking out Nazis, trying to get to the command center, and he rolls up on Robo Hitler, and I'm like, oh my god, oh, this is the moment. Like this is like the high point of Sniper's whole thing. He's going to kill Robo Hitler. So I roll out all my stuff, and he had these ridiculous. Means and Masterminds' first edition is a great system I really like. It's actually the version I prefer, but there's ways you can break it, and you really need to use GM Fiat, and Sniper had all the ways to break it because he was an edgelord. So he shot these arrows that did like nuclear megaton bomb damage on a hit, because of course. So he rolls, he does really well, and I send the whole description to Jason Tondro, and he's like, okay, are you sure this is what you want to say? And I was like, well, yeah, I'm shooting him in the face. Of course I'd want to say that. He's like, you looked this up. This is what it means. And Teenage Mike, of course, was like, of course I looked it up. I didn't look it up at all. This is exactly what I want to say. And so then we post it, and because it was a global event, like 150 people that weren't even participating were just watching it go down.
Right.
And it was this long dialogue that, like, it's like, Sniper sneaks around the corner and he sides up and he thinks of all this stuff, and it's very, emotional. And then at the end, he says a phrase right before he fires the arrow. What I thought the phrase was Arbeit mein frei, which is what was above Auschwitz, means work will set you free. That is not the phrase that I used. The phrase that I used was Achtung Juden, which is attention Jew. So, like, the entire Mux just lost their minds. They had to shut off all the chat channels because people were, obviously laughing at me. Although I will say that, like, that had to be the last possible thing that Robot Hitler expected to hear on his Jupiter Cannon moon station was attention Jew and then arrows in the face.
It would definitely create a double take for Robo Hitler. That reminds me.
Yes.
What is that movie where they go to Iron Skies? I think the Nazis went to the moon and hid out till 2010 or whatever before they come back. And don't they have a Robo Hitler also? Am I misremembering?
He might have been a Robo Hitler. Or Hitler also appears as a villain in the Wolfenstein series, so you might be thinking of that.
No.
Wolfenstein 3D.
Yeah, I played it, back in the late 80s on, Apple IICs. Wolfenstein, but nothing after that. So, and definitely haven't seen any movies or series. Anyhow, let's talk about your books. Let's talk about those. Now, if I'm understanding correctly, all your books are either Pathfinder, which some people call D&D 3.75, or D&D 5th edition compatible. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Now from there, do you want to start at like the first book you published and roll forward? Do you want to talk about the Kickstarter first? Let's talk about the Kickstarter first. And then we'll give everybody some background and whatnot for the books that he built up and came up on. Now, I'm going to look at it. I'm going to summarize it. Then I'm going to set you free to whatever, and I'll just bounce you back into play if you want to. Really? Devnull, good to see you, buddy. You got a little break in the middle of the day, huh? Good to see you. We're talking to a game designer today, Mike Myler, who has a Kickstarter going for D&D 5th edition compatible. Wait, this one is D&D 5th edition compatible, not Pathfinder.
Yes.
Okay, so making sure I get that right so I don't confuse anybody. And Andrea posted a bunch of links. Here's what I will do, bud. I am just going to grab the Kickstarter, slap it up there real quick. Or, Andrea, can you do that for me? And from there, she'll post the other stuff down the road. We just don't want to crowd the whole chat with his links and no talky. Okay, so we're looking here at, you're billing it as a 5th edition RPG mega adventure. But it's more than adventure. It's a whole campaign setting, right?
So this is the campaign setting. We already ran a Kickstarter for it 2 years ago. It's awesome.
Okay. So, by the way, the campaign setting is noir, so 1920s, 30s, steampunk, Eastern fantasy, so you're looking at kind of the Yakuza, modern ninja samurai sort of feel, modern-esque as in the last 100 years. Now, the last word in your description, it says Soburin. The hell's Soburin?
Soberin is, I believe, Japanese for emperor, or it might be Chinese for emperor. But Soberin is the name of the continent that the Mists of Akuma setting is all based around.
Thank you. There we go. That defines that. And it's also defined as a urban sandbox. So I think it's not the campaign setting, not an adventure, but here's a section of the campaign setting, which is one big adventure that you can go do a lot of different things in.
Well, the Imperial Matchmaker is the mega adventure, and it'll include the Sanbaoshi chapter, which is the capital of the Imperial Prefecture and like the biggest city in the world. So it's definitely going to expand on that, but it's a mega adventure that you play from 4th through 10th level, and you don't need the campaign setting to do it. It'll have all the information about Sanbaoshi inside of Imperial Matchmaker. Nice. And then we'll be expanding upon that probably for another 40 or 50 pages.
I thought you were going to say years. I'm like, well, that's looking to the future.
We're moving the timeline from the core book up just a little bit, so there will be a little bit of an update.
Real life years.
No.
Planning on working on this for 40 or 50 years. Never mind. Anyhow.
I'll probably still be working on this 40 years from now, actually.
Yeah,
but yeah.
You're like, here's my 120th expansion.
Yeah, exactly. That's the plan.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the mega adventure is one thing. That's one part of the Kickstarter. And then for people who are like, I'm not interested in running this like thing with 10 weddings in it, which is totally fair. There's an adventure path you can get called Trade War that collects all of the existing adventures, of which I have 4 here, into one longer narrative that you can play through from 3rd through 10th level.
So is it those same adventures, or is it in addition to those adventures? And thank you for the cheer.
Imperial Matchmaker is entirely its own thing. Mm-hmm. Trade War is these 6 adventures plus supplemental information that like ties them all together with warring merchant guilds and shinobi clans and meddling by the Imperial siblings, who are these mythological figures that founded the nation of Soberin.
So there's a lot going on in this Kickstarter.
Yes. We're actually offering 3 books.
Okay. Now, everybody gets 3 books, or you have different reward levels, and you can get 1 of them, 2 of them, or all 3 of them?
Different reward levels. You can get 1 or 2 of them, all 3 of them. You can get the core book. You can get the Adventurer's Handbook, which has all the like mechanical information for playing Samurai and Wujin and all that stuff. There's a really cool pledge chart at the very bottom of the page.
I like charts. Give me a second. I'm running over to the chart real quick. Because that's something, when I look at a Kickstarter, I want that first paragraph to tell me exactly what am I trying to help make, and what am I trying to get out of it for myself. Those are the 2 things I want to know. Then after that, I want all the backstory and know a little bit about the people making. Give me a second. It's a long scroll. Dude, oh, that edge. Oh my goodness, that is a...
It's a big chart.
Where's the one that you get everything? How much does that cost on everything?
Everything starts at, if you don't want a t-shirt, it's $100. If you just want PDFs and vouchers, which the vouchers are out at cost, so you get a voucher, and then whenever the book is ready, you pay for the ink, the paper, the glue, and the shipping. And so it's as cheap as possible. And there's a couple of reasons for that, but it's mostly because I like to overwrite. So, for instance, this book is 415 pages. It was supposed to be like 200. And if I had taken... about 90-95% of it written by me.
Hell of a job, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I pride myself on being good at my job. But yeah, I wouldn't have been able to do that by taking physical orders, because in my second Kickstarter, I took physical orders for Hypercore 2099. And I added 20 pages to the book, which was something I could afford in the budget. And then they raised the cost of ink and paper, which for each individual book was only like $2 maybe. But because I had to pay that hundreds of times, it threw my budget way, way, way into the black.
Right.
So.
Yeah, when you're looking at that much more.
Or the red, I should say. It's the red.
Correct.
Yeah, so I only do the vouchers now because it lets me make the book as good as it can possibly be. But yeah, on that point, if you wanted to get physical books, we offer those at $250 above.
Gotcha. Which, as he just kind of went over the price of what these books cost to print, if you're looking at getting 1, 2, 3, 4 books at $250, it's not bad. And it looks like you're at $250 level. You're going to get a T-shirt anyway, and you're going to get a
Oh, 250. You get like 7 books, I think it is. One, two, three, four. Yeah. You get 7 books and a T-shirt.
Oh, you know what? Let me do this, guys, real quick. If you like
and you
what
get to include somebody.
You could do what?
You get to include an NPC in one of the books too.
There we go. If you like what you're seeing here, and you have a local gaming store you go to, there is always ways to get this material in your local gaming store. Now, that way it might take a little work, or it might be a click of a few buttons. But they
need to message me because the deal is really, really, really good for FLGSs, and I didn't want to make a pledge level that would upset people. So if you have an FLGS and they do Kickstarters, tell them to message me. I have a very good deal for them. It's not on the page. They have to message me.
What's an FLGS? Something.
Friendly local game store.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
It's acronyms. I'm helping them. I knew what it was. I swear. Anyhow.
Yeah.
It's there's a lot of stuff here, but don't forget, you want to support this, you want to play this, you want your friends to play it, you've got to get it in their hands. Absolutely, PDF is a great option with minimal cost on your end and the maker's end, besides the whole slew of doing all the work to create it in the first place. But I love a nice, thick, well, that sounds dirty, book in my hand. So yeah, it's
really difficult to get a print-on-demand model to work with FLGSs because here's what happens. Your friendly local game store makes their order of books. They will not order anything under $300 in an amount, right? So they'll probably order like 10 copies of this book, 20 copies of this book, but it's not going to be under $300 because the main distributors, ACD and Alliance, offer free shipping once you hit $300. So on top of that, they need to have a markup of at least 50%. And in order to do that with the regular pay-on-demand model, like through DriveThruRPG, the amount that the publisher gets to make off the product, I think at 50% markup is 2 or 5%.
Yeah.
So it's really hard. And through Kickstarter is cool because Kickstarter, say you buy a book off DriveThruRPG, right? What happens is DriveThruRPG takes about 1/3 of that money, and then the publisher gets the other 2/3. When you do Kickstarter, Amazon, Visa, and all them, they take about 12%.
Right. So
that leaves an extra 20% that I pretty much just let the friendly local game store just eat up so we can get their fair markup up.
Yeah, that's something
it's so
else.
Complicated to get
when you are at your local comic, gaming, or card store, they don't have a huge markup. So if you're asking for 50% off something, they are going to be losing money if they grant it to you. And this is something a lot of us don't realize. Since I was in my teens, where there was only 2-3 games out, and I would buy paperbacks like crazy, I never understood how come they couldn't give me a huge discount or whatever. I get it now. They don't have a big markup, guys. They're not making double or 5 times what they paid. They're making 20, maybe 25%. And that goes for your Vinyl Pops, that goes for your Magic the Gathering. These companies that own these things, they rake it in. Little guys selling it for them, distributors, they don't.
And it's especially weird for the Games Workshop stores. Which they're currently... Okay, so here's what's up if you want to be a Games Workshop store. Games Workshop will determine the number of figures you can order, and you need to devote a certain amount of floor space to those figures and this other type of figure that they sell and this other type of figure that they sell, and they determine the prices for it, right? And that's been working okay until they started their own online store. So now they control the prices on the online store and in the individual stores, which they don't own. Those are licensed stores,
right?
Franchise. So they're franchise stores. So if you're a franchise owner of a Warhammer 40K store, they can undercut you, and they do frequently, on their website, and you can't respond in any way through the prices of your items. So yeah,
dick move.
Yeah. So it's particularly bad if you're talking about a Games Workshop store. Those guys are straight up between the rock and the hard place, and also there's more rocks falling on them. So keep that in mind when you're in your local game stores.
Here, let me do this for you guys. Here's what you're going to do. our next gaming store that specializes in miniatures, whether it's war game or tabletop gaming or whatever, you go buy yourself 3 decent 3D printers in the back room. You then have a wall or a catalog full of the models, just a page with the model on it. Let people flip through the catalog and custom order their miniature for themselves. And you constantly have those machines running and working, and then you throw your money into the 5th machine or the 12th machine or whatever. And this is how you're going to survive as a gaming shop without having to deal with somebody like a giant like Gaming Workshop.
So that's kind of the problem. Games Workshop knows that the writing is on the wall. Like, they can see that day is coming.
Yeah,
that day is not here yet.
They wrote it themselves, though, by doing this shit to their people that were loyal and love them.
And it's pretty ridiculous, too, because the amount that it costs for Games Workshop after they have their mold to, like, make a pewter plastic figurine is, like, 3 cents a nickel.
Right.
And, you know, so, anyway, in about 10 or 15 years. Right now, you can make your own 3D miniatures, and they're okay. But what happens is that you're going to lose a lot of money on maintenance costs. So if you wanted to make your own Warhammer 40K army, it's going to be cheaper for you to go buy one than to print it out yourself and keep fixing your 3D printer. But I'm told by people who know better than me, we're about 10, 15 years away from that. So like you're watching Games Workshop kind of freak out because like they know like, oh shit, so they're putting more stuff in behind, like pushing their intellectual property into other products and stuff, like more video games, more novels, more weight behind role-playing games and all that stuff, because they know, like, oh god, the rooster's about to caw.
No, Mike, I'll tell you this. 2009, I worked in the prototyping industry. Keep in mind, we're not even a decade after when I worked in it, and we had these big 3D printers before you can get them for your home. These machines.
You talking about CNCs?
I worked there. I didn't run it, so maybe. What's a CNC?
Okay, it's like a gigantic 3D printer.
Okay, and you had different resins that you'd use, and it was laser hardened. So basically, you had the liquid you poured in, the laser hit it, and you had to break away the support material. It wasn't nearly as clean and as tight a product. There was a lot of cleanup. You also had other ones that did in different rubbery type materials. Now, there was one prototype of a razor, like a lady's razor, and to create one prototype of this, it would cost thousands of dollars for a 4-inch by 1.5 inches by a 1/4 inch thick. And then after that, it got cheaper once you made the initial prototype. You could make molds,
right.
But it still cost significant amounts. And later, this is what the person who invented the item is, and then they took that to whoever and went, here's our prototype, this is what you should buy, then you send it to China and you have it mass-produced. This was the prototyping industry. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, not even 3, 4 years ago, or I'm sorry, 3, 4 years after that, so 2013, we started getting home printers, home 3D printers, where you bought a spool. Some of them still ran on the liquid, but you bought the spool of wire, it melted it down or rebuilt. And now we have gone so far from that. My whole elongated tale here, what I'm saying is, they ain't got 10 to 15 years, buddy. It's coming quicker than that.
That's I don't know. I thought it was going to be 5, and somebody who's like way more into the wargaming miniatures market in Europe was like, no, like because you can, like I said, you can get your own 3D printer and it's just like the maintenance costs, and like it's not cheap to get those tiny ass parts yet.
Right.
But it will become cheap to get those little parts, and they will become more durable.
That's why you 3D print them before your machine breaks.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyhow, why don't we just throw this at you and let you go through your Kickstarter for everybody, because we wandered away from that. I want to yank us back towards that, and you pitch your Kickstarter, make people go spend some money.
All right, so let's start by setting the stage. About 160 years ago, the lands of Sobran, who had just come out of like 2 millenniums of like clan wars,
and this is finally his fictional land in the game. Right.
This is a Mists of Akuma campaign setting.
This is not something
they've
achieved
on the peace. Globe. No. Although it's made so that you can add it to your own world, but
nice.
I'll get into that. So about 160 years ago, inside the world history, these lightning-powered ships appear across the Great Divide, which is this huge energy wall at the end of the edge of the world, where the oceans just fall off into endless waterfalls.
So you are a flat earther.
In the
Go
case
on.
of Soberin, yes.
Go on.
So the Ceremians show up in their essentially jet planes, and with their superior technology, very quickly subjugate the, at this time, peaceful people of Soberin. And they draft them into this thing called the War of Kaio across the Great Divide. For about 100 years, it continues this way until suddenly all communication from there stops. People who go back to the Great Divide to visit don't come back. They don't know what's going on with these other countries. And about 50 years, they maintain the occupation before local native rebellion unseats the foreign invaders, and Emperor Hitoshi is returned to the throne, and the imperial line is restored. And then they have about 10 years where things are good. And then the Mists of Akuma show up. The Mists of Akuma are these primordial fogs that strip people of their dignity until they're corrupted into these fast zombies called a Dedo Oni, which are just like flesh-ravening idiots that are destroying everyone and murdering people willy-nilly. And that's the setting. In addition to stripping people of their humanity, they can age objects very quickly and cause them to become Tsukumogami. Tsukumogami are something you stole from Japanese folklore. They're great. After 100 years, an item might grow arms.
Remember, it's not stolen. It's paid homage.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of homage to Japanese folklore, Chinese myth, and other Eastern cultures, too.
I homaged all over her. No, go on.
So, right, Tsukumogami can become little monsters, and if they were treated well while inanimate, then they're cool and friendly and helpful. But if they were not treated well, then they are angry and destructive and murderous. And that's a particular problem because there's a lot of war machines left over from the Kengen occupation. So like, there's a heretical fear of technology because it's nice to have a gun, but like, what if the gun gets hit by the Mists of Akuma and bites you in the hand and shoots you in the face?
I hate when that happens. It's only happened a couple times, but I've never liked it.
Yeah. And it could be, like, what if that gun is actually like a siege cannon or like a war munitions train? So there's this huge heretical fear, sort of like Warhammer 40k, mysticism around technology. And that's the setting. Okay, so that's, like I said, it's already done. It's dope. You can buy it on DriveThru RPG now for 5th edition or for Shadow of the Demon Lord, because I got to be the first person to license Shadow of the Demon Lord.
Nice.
So anyway, that's the Mists of Akuma setting. And inside this setting, Emperor Toshi has kind of gotten tired of this really long feud going between these 4 clans, the Gekido, the Haikasuru, the Kirai, and the Namida, over this thing called the Battle of Broken Spears, where essentially there's a big fight and nobody could decide who lost and who won. And they've been arguing about who won or who lost ever since then.
Like you do.
Right, of course. They all want to retain their honor because that's an important part of society.
We
So
all
Emperor
know who
Toshi...
writes the history books, the winners.
That's true, yeah. Well, Emperor Toshi's going to write it because he's done. He's tired of this shit. And he's picked out like 20 grooms and brides and decided that they're going to marry each other and that he's going to link the clans together through this fashion, and everyone's just going to deal with it. And that's what the Imperial Matchmaker is. It's this month long, or a month out of Soberin, and every 3 days there is a wedding, and the PCs are given many, many opportunities to either interfere with weddings or make sure that they go down smoothly, or save poisoned fiancés, and so on and so forth, from 4th through 10th level. And it all happens in Sanbaoshi, which is this big urban metropolis. And that's the mega adventure. So and we're going to talk about what makes mega adventures and campaign adventures and adventure modules or adventure paths.
I'm going to Kickstarter also.
I know. So that's the mega adventure. It's all one long narrative that you can't really pull pieces out of. And then there's a second book called the Imperial Matchmaker Guests. So this is a book of iconics. These are characters that are like emblematic of Mists of Akuma. One of them is an undead ninja called Necroji. His name's Kandon. Another one is a hobgoblin in machine armor. His name's Piasu. He's an Irokatira warrior. And they're all meant to be used as pre-generated PCs, right? So like, if you don't want to make a character, you just pick one of these, and there'll be builds in the book from 4th through 10th level, and you can just play that character as their build. I am the kind of person who'd be like, what are you talking about? I'm going to make my own character. In which case, you use them as, like, the GM uses the book to make them rivals for the NPCs throughout either Imperial Matchmaker or Trade War.
Gotcha.
So that's a softcover book. And then the third book in the Kickstarter is called Trade War, which is an adventure path. It's an adventure path because it's made out of 6 modules that already exist, and it links them together with extra characters and information and encounters into a longer narrative with like a new ending.
Gotcha. So you built bridges and a special twist at the end. So even if they have the original content, there's more for them.
Right, and you could take any adventure out of the adventure path and just run it, and it'll be fine. It's its own contained thing inside of that. But if you want to be the whole thing, there's a larger narrative to participate in.
Gotcha. So with the Kickstarter we're looking at, there's all kinds of levels and varieties, guys. So these are the 3 core projects being brought to life through the Kickstarter. Correct on that one? Okay.
Yes.
And then, of course, there's all kinds of extra bonus stuff. And then don't forget his website in general, which has all kinds of cool stuff on it. Now, I want to go into a tangent here, and we've got about 15 minutes before we take a couple-minute break. You ever heard of Torg?
Yeah, they're doing a Kickstarter right now.
Are they really?
They are.
Okay, let's not get distracted. I'm just going to make a note here. Sorry, because I used to play that,
That's
and
cool.
The gaming system was okay. The concept was awesomely fun. Now, for those of you watching who, they're like, what? Torg was an acronym for the other role-playing game. Torg. And the concept was the way we have potential energy of a rock sitting on top of a hill. It has potential energy if you shove it down that hill. Scientific. Science. I scienced. Well, then there was possibility energy. Not real science. Role-playing game science. So Earth is a font. It's a huge amount of possibility energy. So this big evil bad guy who has taken over other worlds, sucked up their possibility energy, gets his eyeballs on Earth. So he gets his other fiendish cohorts, in other words, his lackeys that have whole worlds modeled after their thing that they suck the energy out of, and they throw a bridge at Earth. One bridge, there's so much possibility energy, it just shakes it off. So they throw 6 of them. So, for example, the UK turns into a medieval fantasy land where you have dwarves and dragons and magic. Northern Africa turns into my favorite part, the noir world, where you have things like the Phantom, Batman, the very low-level beginning superheroes, Indiana Jones, and all that. And the main enemy there
Pulpy stuff.
Yeah, exact. Thank you. Pulp Fiction. Thank you. The big bad guy there, believe it or not, is a army of walking plant Nazis. It's great. North America mostly turns into a dinosaur land, a primitive throwback to millions of years ago. And
that's what the current Kickstarter is for.
Okay. The interesting part of this game is when you walked into, let's say, the dinosaur land with your Jeep and your guns, they stopped working. Because science hasn't advanced so that far, those laws of physics and science don't exist yet, thus your equipment no longer works the way it should. The same in the Magic Realm, etc., etc. They put out expansions. This was just a great concept, fun. You could play in a dinosaur world, you could go play in a medieval fantasy world, all with the same character. It was just delightful. On a planet that you knew. You know where France is. Well, okay, probably not 80% of U.S. students, but back then we knew. Anyhow, what I'm asking, well, the reason I brought that up is I'm looking at, and I want to go talk about your hypercore and the other stuff you've done previously. A great future expansion to keep in mind would be just get a book called Crossover, and it creates some kind of land bridges between your different campaign settings that people can now, using one set of rules, take one character through all these.
This is one of the reasons that I own all my intellectual property. I don't want to give too much away, but I have an entire book for what happens when you get across the Great Divide.
There we go. So are all your worlds that you've written settings for, are they all on like a flat Earth concept?
No. Silbert is its own thing, and we made Mists of Akuma in such a fashion where you could just transport it into your campaign setting world, right?
Right.
So you could be playing in Greyhawk, and then be like, and suddenly there's a mysterious cloud that just like persists off the
and
East
you're like,
Coast.
oh, John, what do you eat?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh wait, there's another one too. Go ahead.
No, we went with like a super modular design. So when I talk about Mists of Akuma, I always talk about it as Eastern Fantasy Noir and then Steampunk, like in that order, because that was like our thinking, right? And that's why there's this heretical treatment of technology. So if you go to the Kickstarter page for Imperial Matchmaker, there are 9 free PDFs, and one of them is the Soburn Primer. It's really big. It's like 50 pages or something. And there's a sidebar in there. It's just like, do you not like steampunk? That's great. Here's the stuff to pull out of the campaign setting, like by chapter, so you can just run this as a Eastern noir fantasy rather than include all the War Machine monsters and all that stuff.
Right. So what are you drinking out of right there? Because that's not a Coke bottle.
It is a small Dr. Pepper bottle with a Starfinder cozy that I got from the Paizo people.
Gotcha.
And then a sock because condensation.
So you have a cozy and a sock. The cozy does not suck up enough condensation. Well,
it leaves half the bottle open. And then...
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just checking. And by the way, when we have a song that you sent over that was... No, you didn't write it, right?
I didn't. My friend Nicholas J. Geibel wrote it. He's a great guy. He's in a band called The Bloody Seamen, like the Sailors Seamen. You should check him out if you like pirate jigs.
Yeah, I do like that kind of stuff. So when we go into a break here in about 5-6 minutes, I'll put that on while we're on break, so everybody has something to listen to.
They just played the Pittsburgh Irish Parade, which is the second biggest Irish Day or St. Patrick's Day celebration in the States. So they were all psyched about it. It's a fun thing. They put on all the makeup and stuff. It's a whole production. It's cool.
It's second only.
That's not what the Miss Fakuma song is. The Miss Fakuma song is definitely not a pirate jig.
Oh.
But
Well, I'm somewhere between like cool and aw. So I'm looking at your other books, and you have 3 or 4 with the header of Hypercore. And if I remember correctly, and I'm going to let you expand on this and correct me if need be, you have one for apocalyptic mutants. You have one for superheroes, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say there's more that I'm not remembering. Refresh me.
Superheroes, cyberpunk.
Okay.
So Hypercore started, originally we were going to do this for Mutants and Masterminds, and then Clinton Boomer, who you might have seen from the D&D PSAs from like 10 years ago, he's a great guy. He's awesome. He's like, hey, Mike, why don't we do this for Pathfinder? And I was like, okay, can you give me like 2 weeks to figure out how to do this for Pathfinder? Because like Pathfinder doesn't have superheroes.
Right.
And I did figure it out. I figured out a great system. So the Paizo released this thing they didn't do epic levels for Pathfinder. There's no 21st level fighter. Instead, what they did is they released a thing called Mythic Adventures, which is a rules template that you just kind of put over the regular Pathfinder rules. So you could have a 20th level, Mythic 10 tier person, but you could also have like a first level Mythic 1 person. So you could play low level epic games. It was really brilliant. Conceptually, I thought it was really brilliant. In practice, I found it to be not ideal. So I took the idea and then I just bent it towards superheroes, and it worked out fabulously. And now we have this big campaign scene book. So you play it's cyberpunk superheroes. So think like Shadowrun, but with superpowers. Nice. And then because we hit a stretch goal to make a 5th edition version, which we did a good job with, but like the way that the numbers work in 5th edition versus the way they work in Pathfinder, there's a vast degree of difference. Right. So if you check out my website, right, and you look at the Hyperscore Marvel stuff, you can see exactly how to make Thor or the Hulk in Pathfinder and stay within the bounds of all the rules, so you could like play it as a character. That's just not possible with 5th edition. So the 5th edition kind of caps out around like X-Men level powers. If you take out like Jean Grey, so like thinking Cyclops, Nightcrawler, you can do those. You can't do the Hulk as a PC. It just doesn't work.
No, we're going to need a source book from D&D called Deities and Demigods and other things that equate superheroes.
Well, I mean, yeah, I have stat blocks for the Hulk. Well, not the Hulk, but like super strong characters and stuff like that. But they're written up as monsters in 5th edition.
Right.
And the monster creation rules and NPC creation rules in 5th edition are not nearly as good as in Pathfinder. We all got spoiled by Pathfinder's monster creation rules. If you're a game designer, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, you can go check them out. All of Paizo's rules are for free on their website. But anyway, the 5th edition rules are cool. They're fun. They're for what they are. But like I knew that I didn't want to keep pushing that product line in that direction for 5th edition because it just wasn't meshing as well as it should.
Right.
So in the 5th edition world of Hypercore, things go terribly, terribly wrong, and you get this book. This isn't actually a campaign setting. This is a campaign setting generator. So inside of it, there's like rules for randomly making your own apocalyptic wasteland. Mm-hmm. And weapons and vehicles and like suits of power armor and other stuff. It's really cool. I love Fallout. I'm a huge Fallout junkie, and this is kind of like my ode to Fallout.
Do they have Fallout for PS4?
They do.
And it's a single-player game, though, isn't it?
They have Fallout 4 for PS4, and yeah, it's a single-player game.
See, that sucks. Normally, when we don't have a guest on like you on Middle-Aged Gamers Wednesday, she and I are on the PS4 playing like Lego Dimensions or something we can play together. And eventually we'll be moving into playing like, Magic the Gathering or board games or whatever we're in the mood for, really, because we're adults and we can play with our toys when we want to. So,
I'm just trying to think of like what you could do. What you could do is there's a really fun Fallout phone game that I'm sure is also on the PC called Fallout Shelter.
Okay.
So one of you could be playing Fallout Shelter while the other one plays Fallout 4.
We'll look into that down the road. Oh, that's a rather short song too, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah, it's not very long. It's just a quick ditty. So
I'll put
inside of Hypercore, there are also a bunch of rules for like how to play the setting as like when in the setting of Hypercore 2099, dwarves and stuff start showing up in the late 1800s. Like portals to other fantasy realms just appear in 1876. And it has to do with something that happens in 2076 called the Tachyon Flux. We're not going to get all the way into that just this particular moment.
Yeah, you can get a Tachyon Flux.
Yeah. What, Tachyon Tums? No, that's not a decent joke.
That'd be Tumsian? Tachyums?
Tachyums. I'd go for Tachyums, yeah. So yeah, there's rules for playing it as, when that first happens. There's rules for playing it during World War II. There's rules for playing it during like a modern era game before all the cyberpunk stuff happens. And one of the backers from the Kickstarter paid for me to take a flight to Seattle and like run games for him at PaizoCon. And he really wanted to do World War II stuff. Mm-hmm. And he made these great World War II pre-gens. And everybody had a great time. I'm always amazed by the number of like soldiers that play RPGs, but oh my god, so many. And it makes sense because like a lot of soldiering is just like sitting in a place for a long ass time and not falling asleep.
One book and entertain 5 to 12 guys, and one set of dice, of course. But nowadays with phone apps, if they have any kind of phone, you don't even need dice. So I tell you what, let's take a quick break here. Let everybody get up and get a refill. I'm going to play the song.
Can I talk about Nazi Smasher?
Yeah, go ahead. Go on.
Okay. So we did all that stuff, and it was great and fun. And then the Unite the Right rally happened, and a lot of people were upset, including myself. And we decided to do something about it. And so we made an adventure that everybody contributed to freely, and all the proceeds from it go to charity called Operation Nazi Smasher. Find out about it at www.operationnazismasher.com.
You can buy it as a camera so I can see the cover.
As a PDF or as a module on Roll20. And the artwork is Claudio Pozis, who, again, totally for free, which is great, because this normally Claudio would charge, I'm not going to tell you exactly how much, but it's around about $1,000 for this. So it's amazing. Check it out. You will help fight Nazis both in the game world and in real life.
Okay. Go to mute yourself, guys. If you want to get up for a minute, I'm going to play this music so everybody can hear what you got there. And, we'll take it from there. go, and that was Through the Mist. Give me a second while everybody's on a break. I am sending a message to some of tomorrow's guests. So it's yeah, okay. Just sending a message out to them. Let's see, trying to set it up to do a test right after this show. And so pardon me while I get a little distracted. Welcome back, Mike.
So yeah, where to start?
Where to start? It's, I tell you what, you want to talk about
start at the back or start at the front? Which one do you think?
Oh, what are you going to go through all your books that you got?
That's what I thought I figured that'd be a good hour.
Give Andrea just a moment, and that'll get her back here, and we'll start rolling there.
I think I'm going to start in the back. I don't spend enough time looking through my books. So.
You know, it's one of those beautiful things, kind of like when you collect comics and you actually do sit down and go through them instead of leaving them in the box. It is something you could take some time, just relax, kick back, and enjoy. So let's see here. Yeah, it's a pretty good music. You get something like that. Do you run soundtracks? Do you play music when you run games?
Yeah, I almost never run in my house anymore, although I do run stuff through speakers when I do. And then on Roll20, that song is included with like 13 others in every one of the Roll20 Mists of Akuma adventure modules. So like there's a soundtrack like sitting there ready for you.
So what does it come with, like a CD or just a download code, or?
No, when you load the Roll20 thingy, there's a jukebox option in the upper right-hand corner. Yeah,
nice.
They've been improving their service for a while now. I was really pushing, and I was like, guys, can you please get some kind of system in place so I can offer all these Mists of Akuma modules that I've made on Roll20 available as Kickstarter rewards, and like they just couldn't get it together. So and they're so dumb because they could have made so much money tying in with Matt Colville and his like Stronghold stuff.
Right.
Like they just left so much money on the table.
They don't have somebody to do the work, and you know what? Better that they not do the work at all than do it sloppy or wrong or half-assed.
I don't understand how hard the work could have been. They already have a system in place for you to buy modules, so it would be just creating like a zero count exchange.
Right.
Like I don't understand. And there's a way to gift stuff too. I'm not going to get into it. I don't know what their coding structure is. Maybe it's a complete mess. I have no idea. But like, I'm amazed that they couldn't get it together.
It's so funny.
They took my other suggestions.
It's funny to see yourself rein yourself in because you're worried about saying the wrong thing and upsetting somebody, but you're so frustrated. I get it too, by the way. Not even mocking it, just going, oh, it's, I don't know, I guess empathizing with you because I hate hurting people's feelings, but man, I hate when people are stupid.
I'm sure if somebody told the guys who own Roll20, like, hey, you missed out on at least $120,000 of revenue, that there would have been a different response, but like, it just didn't go up that high the chain or whatever. I
will give you a wonderful trick that maybe you haven't figured out yet. And I have done this multiple times with people like Verizon, Lowe's. When I have an issue, I go through the proper channels on the store level. And if I walk out of that store level and feel like I need to raise my voice to get the attention I need or do anything besides speak reasonably, logically, and pleasantly, I go home and I Google the CEO. And I directly send the CEO an email. And I talk to him the way I'm talking to you right now when I type up that email. I don't go super professional. I have never been disappointed when I do this. I have always seen results, and not bend over backward results, just the reasonable results I wanted.
Yeah, when it's a big enough deal, I'll talk directly to the... Yeah, I can think of something that happened earlier this year where that's exactly what I did. I'm really happy I did too, because like if I hadn't, terrible things would have happened. So like,
well, even with like this, you mentioned it didn't go high enough up the list. This is where I try to go up their chain of command, but there comes a point where I'm like, fuck this. I'm going straight to the top because
I'm sure whatever Colville's writing for his stronghold rules that they could have implemented in Roll20, and that they would have been able to add that as a thing, as a small package, whatever. And how much money did he end up making? Like $2 million?
No idea. I know I didn't make that. That's all I know. Wasn't me.
Yeah.
And give me a second for our viewers there. I've got to change something here, and I don't necessarily want you guys seeing it, so I'm moving that off the screen, and you get to see this stuff instead. So, there we go. Okay. I saw some notifications on Skype that I wanted to respond to and check, including something from you guys. But when you send it to me on Skype, it's I don't even know who that is.
Oh, buttermint tea. Ooh.
You know, it's...
I'm always afraid when I see butter because I'm allergic to milk. I'm sure there's no butter in that, but like, yeah.
Okay, so now let me come back to you, make you guys full screen, and drag you back over here where you belong and make you big again. Woohoo! There we go.
I just want to talk about this. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It is vanilla and mint. Buttermint tea.
She
by
loved
Twinings.
This stuff.
Very good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she went goo-goo over it, and then she's like, let me find it at my local stores. And we went to, local grocery stores and Walmart. No, nothing.
They stopped carrying it.
She went online to Walmart, and it was like $27 a box for like 12 bags. But then she found it. Now, you got Wegmans up there, Mike?
Wegmans, if you go northern Pennsylvania or over into Jersey, yeah.
You ever been to a Wegmans?
Yeah, they're pretty decent stores.
Yeah, they are the Wawa of grocery stores, and Wawa...
We have one out here with a pub. There is a pub in the Wawa.
Yeah,
that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you go hit up the cheese bar, get some samples, walk past the beautiful meat counters, hit the beer and wine section to pick something up to take home, go have dinner at the pub with a drink. It's like an adult Disney World. It's beautiful. I touched
Pennsylvania's recently loosened up on a lot of the blue laws. So
you talk about alcohol in specific?
Yes. Yeah, blue laws specifically are like, bars are not open on Sundays. At one point it was like movie theaters too. Yeah. So now like you can buy beer at the grocery store, and like a couple of convenience stores sell beer. Whereas, 5 years ago that was not, couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's your Quaker Puritan heritage of the settlers coming through there. And I know, by the way, blue laws are laws that are no longer applicable on books as opposed to just applying to alcohol. Outdated alcohol.
I thought it was just like weird conservative laws.
No, they're just basically laws that have fallen. For example, in Alabama or Tennessee, a woman cannot drive a car without a man walking in front of it with flags. Like directing flags. You can't carry an ice cream in your back pocket in Mississippi or somewhere. An ice cream cone. You can't put one in your back.
The governor of Pennsylvania is supposed to have participated in at least one duel before he can become governor, and I'm pretty fucking positive that Tom Wolfe has not been in a duel.
Could be a thumb war. You don't know.
Maybe.
Don't get all judgy.
That'd be so lame. That'd be so... Oh my god.
That'd be so lame, it'd be fun. Especially if they made it like a huge wrestling ring, and you got them in the boxer shorts and the robes, and they go out there and go... Just make a freaking production of that.
At least a small boxing match, let's see some...
A slap fight, so they could fight like this.
I would take a slap fight. I would accept slap fight.
Maybe an archery contest, and you could put the other person's picture on the target. Something.
Duel of skill.
Oh. Not a tongue duel, because I don't want to see two politicians making out.
They don't need to win the duel. They just need to participate in it. Like, That seems like a decent law to keep going.
So it could be like 10 paces, and on the 8th pace, when they're stepping away from each other, the soon-to-be governor throws his hands up and runs away screaming, and you're like, well, he participated.
I would accept it.
He runs like a 3-year-old. That's great. Put that on YouTube. I don't imagine many of our politicians could run too far, but then again, I might be surprised. They do keep themselves fit just for public appearance in some cases.
Yeah, I know he had to deal with some. He's been in remission from cancer lately, but he could probably run a decent amount. It looks like he could do it.
What kind of cancer? Are we talking about, like, melanoma removed, or are we talking about full-out brain cancer? Like
no, I can't remember what it wasn't. It wasn't like it was like a digestive cancer or something down there, maybe thoracic. I can't remember. He beat it though.
He had asshole cancer because politician.
He's a weird one. He's like I'm gonna not take any of my salary, which is cool and very cool of you, but like you're from a super rich family, bro. Like we know you don't need the governor's salary of like what you're probably getting from your.
I still respect that. Devnall's heading out. Hey Devnall, thanks for joining us, buddy.
Bye, Devnall.
If you have time tomorrow, check it out. Because we're going to have the folks from New Jersey Steampunk Piscataway with that new event that's growing there, and we're also going to have Montague Jacques Fromage and Victor and the Bully, who that was actually part of the Skype thing I was doing because they're now connecting with me. We're going to do a test run with them immediately after we finish the show, so that won't be broadcast.
Well, Devnall says he's going to go mobile and listen.
I know.
So awesome.
Yeah. I've got to go get my son right after I get done with all this work here, too. I'm headed out to pick up my boy, so... Okay, drive safe, man. We'll catch you. And remember, you're number 1 bit leader. Yay. Devnall's one of our favorites. He's a rather new listener, relatively, that he hasn't been with us 4 or 5 years. Just, 5-6 months instead. And, but yeah, he rolls with our humor so well and takes the punches and gives them and just has a great time with us. Laughing all the way and participating. It's the kind of person you want showing up for your show. That's Devnall.
Yeah.
And he supported our Kickstarter. I guess I could add that in. I tend to look for the more etheric reasons to have beloved people join you, as opposed to they gave me money. I like them. Not that I don't like anybody that gave me money. I love you all. It was believable, right? I didn't sound like the governor that didn't participate in some kind of duel or something, did I?
No, it's all right. It's all right.
So, yeah, when I first saw this before we went on air, I thought maybe you were smoking cloves or something.
No. Cloves are terrible. Although my cigarettes are often lamented by others. I don't care. It's better than a
room note, or do they just smell like cigarettes?
I think they just smell like cigarettes to me. Okay. When the tobacco gets stale, it does smell a little bit worse. But
yes, I have the same problem with my pipe tobacco. Which, Andrew, I realized I have another large tin that I need to get.
When you roll your cigarettes, do you use filters?
I just roll little crutches. I used to use filters back in the day, but they're only really effective for the first couple drags. So.
Yeah, kind of like the filter I have on my mouth. No, I'm kidding. I never put my mouth in drag. See? Did it again.
Never say never.
That's right. As of to this point, I haven't. No, I'm kidding. I've totally wore lipstick and whatnot. And for anybody just joining us, welcome to the show. We are talking to Mike Myler, game designer extraordinaire, and a guy who has a creative bug so much he is going to put something out, whether he has to carve it in the dirt in his front yard or put it into a beautiful book.
I've gotten really good at using very little money to do very many things.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Me too.
But if you can make ends meet, even if you could, just pay your bills with it, then you're doing all right. And you know what? Even if you can't pay your bills with it, if you're bringing in anything, you're doing all right. And to go even further, if you're making absolutely nothing and you feel good when you're done, you're doing all right.
I mean, as long as you don't have dependents, I would add.
Well, you could have a day job
if you've
also.
got, yeah, if you've got kids, keep your day job. But yeah.
Well, like with the show and my writing and everything, I definitely had many years where I was not making money. And, I'm still not necessarily rolling in it. It's a little bonus, but I love doing it. And whether I'm making zero or making $1 million, I'm going to keep doing it because it's just great. And that goes for...
We do this for us and let other people join.
Yeah. And it's good stuff.
I know. We set out, I told Steph, I was like, the writing is not like a lot of money, right? And because she's kind of bougie. She's still in the house. I don't want to say too loud. She's very, very bougie. And she has like nice bags from Marc Jacobs and all this shit. And I was very clear with her. I was like, honey, money's probably not going to be very heavy on my side. And she's like, it's okay. And like she fights with me and stuff about it. But like I was like, if I'm doing this, I'm doing this until I can't do it. And somebody stops me. Like,
I'm with you.
I'm not going to go in waist deep.
We're poor man bougie. You see her fancy teacup there? Hold up your teacup. That was $1 at the thrift store.
It's
and
a nice teacup.
I have what's the leather duffel bag I have, Andrea, that we picked up for $3 in a thrift store, and it's like a $4.
Oh yeah, thrift stores have really good. I got like a $200 leather. What do you call it? Raincoat? Not a raincoat.
Trench coat.
Trench coat.
Trench coat. Yeah. It's like a $230 trench coat. I paid $5 for it at the thrift store. Yeah.
Well, he got a brand new Coach duffel bag with the tag still, with it. Looked it up. It's $350.
Yep.
I have a.
What did you pay? $3?
Yeah, something like that. Because it was like, it had the right color tag on it to mark it down, and then it was like half price day for everything in the store. So what was originally $4 now is $2 or whatever, or $10 is And then I get a Pierre Cardin suit for $7. They just happen to be my exact size. So yeah, we do like that. And
I got Michael Kors at the thrift store. So.
Oh, okay. So if we're talking about being thrifty, I'm gonna bring it back to Mrs. Akuma really quick.
Go ahead. Yeah, twist
because I have some interesting stuff to talk about it. So like, there was this thing in Japan that happened called the Tokugawa isolation, where the Tokugawa era they said no foreigners except for the Dutch. We'll trade with the Dutch. This is real. This is real world.
Hey, Skipper. Here's to you, buddy. Thanks for that cheer.
Thank you, Skipper.
Thank you, Skipper.
Go on, buddy.
So they declared, we're complete xenophobes. Nobody's allowed in Japan. Some Portuguese people crash landed there, but for the most part, it was just Dutch doing the trading. So when the Gutenberg printing press, which is the one that had typable letters, so you could like make a new sheet of a press and make newspapers and stuff.
So we're looking mid 1800s for this.
I think the Gutenberg printing press was 1664.
Oh, was it that?
Although don't quote me on the date. It was pretty early, yeah. And that was during the Tokugawa isolation. So like Japan never got the Gutenberg printing press that everybody else did. So there were legibility problems in Japan. That's a whole nother discussion. But what they used instead was a lithograph. And a lithograph is essentially you make one metal plate, and then you can press that plate over and over and over again, but you can't ever change the plate.
Right.
It's just what it is. So they had this artistic tradition called ukiyo-e woodblock printing, and where they made a shitload of those plates. And there's a really amazing reservoir of artwork in Japan that is extremely high quality that is still around and decent and in the public domain. So like a lot of Mrs. Akuma art is just taken directly from Japanese ukiyo, like this guy.
You know what? I have a resource for you.
I've seen so many tens of thousands at least.
Is
this the Congress? Send it. Send it over. I'll use it.
I'm trying to remember where it is. But yeah, it is something along those lines. Basically, somebody released thousands of pages of old art, and it's not Japanese. It's not.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of really great public domain art. I use public domain art in all my books. It's constantly applicable in Mists of Akuma.
Right.
Otherwise, you have to be like choosy about it. Where's a good one? I used some in the Decopunk campaign setting because there's some stuff from the 1920s that is public domain.
And that's what I was thinking of. Is this is something like that from that era, and
it's off a sci-fi poster. It's in public domain now.
There you go.
Yeah. And pictures you take yourself, like this, for instance, is from what's Napier? It's a town called Napier in New Zealand. It's the Art Deco capital of the world.
Nice.
I went there with my wife, and we took pictures specifically so I could put them in this book.
That's a hell of an excuse to go to New Zealand, dude.
Well, I was also there's a job that I was up for over there, although the offer was rescinded. So,
God.
Yeah,
I don't even know where I saved this link. I know I still have it somewhere, but yeah, it was just one of those big public domain things that somebody released, tens of thousands of pictures or whatever from, 100 years ago or whatever.
It's a really good one in here for Hieronymus Bosch. I love using this one. That's Cronus, the Titan, eating one of his children. Yeah, there's some good public domain stuff. And I like using public domain too because it helps bridge the suspension of disbelief, which is a big issue when you're doing a role-playing game setting. You want people to have a shared sense of what the world is, and you want that world to be believable. And if you can give them stuff from the real world, that makes that world all the more believable.
Yeah, it gives you that many more ties where people are like, oh no, this is a thing. I'm good with this. Yeah, I don't know where it is, but
Hieronymus Bosch was just channeling the meat. Maybe Hieronymus Bosch was channeling the same thing that I am when I write stuff about things that use his imagery.
You never know. It can't hurt to believe it, can it? It's not going to hurt anybody or do anything wrong. So yeah,
Again, Japan's some of that artwork for the Ukiyo-e. Do I have a copy of Robaishita Temple here? I don't. Some of it looks like it was made in a 1980s Marvel comic. It's extremely high quality. I'm consistently amazed by some of the things I see.
Okay, what else what have we not talked about on your Kickstarter yet? Anything in particular?
We could talk about the Iconics. The Iconics are all really dope.
Tell me about those.
Let me see. There are 8 of them. They run the gamut from a very traditional kami spirit priestess called Natsuko Hibike.
And that's kami in the Japanese word, not as in the Russian abbreviation of communist or the American slang, as it were.
Kami, Kami, the spirit. So she's the most traditional one, I would argue. Then there's if you want to play a samurai, there's this character named Tomo Masamune, the Crimson Blade, who has an arm. That's so what happens with her is she's raised in a samurai family, and they're kind of on the outs. And what happens is her role model and aunt becomes this thug hitman essentially for the lord of the prefecture, and she buys into it all until things go awry. She gets her arm shorn off by her lord, and then kicked off the cliffs into the sea to die. She doesn't die. She survives.
She had a very similar childhood.
Yeah. She wakes up without the arm, right? And she's clutching a steel augmetic that she must have grabbed in the water somehow. And she restores it and eventually gets it to replace her arm. And after it's in her body, she finds out it's a Tsukumogami, so it's a little creature that's now installed into her shoulder. So that's one of the Iconics. And they all have a special thing going on, right? So Natsuko, her thing is that her family, kami spirit friend, is this extremely powerful snake spirit that's more powerful than what a kami cleric would normally get. The most noir one is probably the Tanuki Private Eye, Matsi Tsunamo.
Nice.
So she's one of the raccoon folk, or raccoon dog folk, depending on how you want to interpret the history. They're really supposed to be.
We're not going with Trash Panda because it has a more Asian feel.
No. And
you're familiar with the term, right?
I think so. Yes.
It's a nickname for raccoons trash pan.
Oh, yeah. They're much more raccoony than they are squirrely. There's a lot of crazy stuff for if you look up Tanuki. When I think of Tanuki, I think of the Mario 3 suit that lets you become like little stone statue. Right.
That makes sense. When I think of Tanuki, I think to say bless you because somebody just sneezed.
If you look up Tanuki on Google, A, make sure you don't have any coworkers around, and then B, be amazed because like their whole thing in the history of one of their big things was giant balls. And when I say giant balls, I mean like the South Park episode Giant Balls. Like they hit people with their giant balls. They play them like drums. It's insane.
So
you should Google Tanuki Ukiyo-e. Yeah. That's what we're talking about.
Do not Google giant balls.
No, don't do no. Google Tanuki Ukiyo, like UKIYO, and you will find amazing things that you would
Can you type that in the chat?
Yeah,
so we know how to spell it?
Come on, who can't spell the way Japanese speak?
It's you're gonna
And
I had to fight with one of my artists too because I was like, look, Nathaniel, I understand that you're young. I understand this is a little comfortable for you, man. But like, we can't not give them giant balls. Like, I'm gonna be true to what Tanuki you're supposed to have. Like, I need it to have visible balls. And we fought over it for like 3 hours before he finally put these like little visible balls under the samurai. Hold on, let me find the picture.
Have you ever seen Johnny Dangerously?
Yeah. That's one with Michael Keaton, right?
Yeah. Do you remember when he played the old black and white film about why his brother shouldn't have sex? And it's got the guys in the hospital, and they've got these huge balls in their pants. They're the size of like 2 beach balls inside. I can't even see those. That's not something.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I was like, Nathaniel, you just got to put them in there, buddy. And that's what I finally got out of him.
If you've ever looked at any rodents, from any male rodents from behind, they got huge sacks. Maybe
not like the Tanuki
pictures, but they still.
Oh my god!
Like their ball sack on some of these rats that I used to. It's like the size of their damn head, almost like half the size. So yeah, if you could touch. Go ahead. To touch balls.
If you Google that, they're on their head.
Oh yeah, they do crazy stuff with them. So like the isolation era continues in Japan, like in real world history, up until 1854 when this guy named Commodore Matthew C. Perry from the United States sails into Edo Harbor, Tokyo, and points his the gunboats, which are all steel compared to the Japanese like old wooden rickets, and says we're going to be friends. And that's when the era ends and the Meiji Restoration happens. And during the Meiji Restoration, you start to see the culture of Japan be affected. And then after World War II, it gets really, really curbed by America. So like they still have one phallic festival. But there's like secret history in Japan, essentially. Well, not secret, but like obscured history in Japan of like phallic worship. It used to be like a big thing, and now there's just one festival, one day of the year.
Island of it with all these penis art, for lack of a better term. Yeah, and I mean, then again, don't they have a whole island of vaginas also?
I can't confirm that, but
I know they have a bunny island and a cat island.
Oh, there are multiple cat islands.
Yeah, I just want to go visit these places to go. Yeah, I went to the Dick Island, the Cat Island, the Bunny Island, where 40
there's
bunnies.
There's a deer island.
Is there?
There's a deer island too. Yeah.
And I posted a few links of some of the better photos in the Google search I found, so you guys can check those out if you want. Enjoy.
See what we got here. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. How could you not have it have balls when you see stuff like this?
Yeah, when you're looking at that, it looks like they're on a hairy carpet, a 20 by 20 hairy carpet in front of the guy, and then you realize, oh, that's attached. Yeah, and each of the person dancing, the 20 animal-headed men dancing on top of the sack, all have sacks the size of, I don't know, if you were at a picnic and you grabbed the corner of the 4 blankets and ran away with it, that would be your sack. Hold on, Skipper. Okay, that's a YouTube video. I can't watch a YouTube video during the show, but I'll pull it up and watch it later.
It's the thing from Johnny Dangerously. Now that you can, I remember that.
Yeah. It's thank you, Skipper. That is
fun fact about Michael Keaton.
Yes.
He's from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And there is a Michael Keaton Day, and it's like the worst possible day for it to be Michael Keaton Day. Do you want to guess what date Michael Keaton Day is?
9/11. There we go. It's
Yep.
By the way,
It's so bad for him too.
the Michael Keaton Batman appears in Ready Player One.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
It's and if you guys haven't seen it, go watch it. What a great movie! Just fun adventure, all kinds of.
It was actually a better movie than I thought it was going to be.
Now, from what I hear, I
Me
have
too.
not read the book, but they do
I haven't-
differently than the book, and some people are a little about that. But I haven't heard too much bad stuff about it. It's still an enjoyable movie. Go ahead, bud. What do you got?
Did you see that they're doing a series, like a TV series for Astro City?
No.
Do you know about Astro City?
I know about Astro Boy. I don't know about Astro City.
Astro City is written by. I thought about Ready Player One because like Ready Player One was really good, but like the other thing that got me excited the other week. So Astro City is a super 4-color comic book. All the covers are done by Alex Ross,
Okay.
who is the dude who does ultra realistic paintings of superheroes, and they're all 4-color, but they deal with plots and subject matter that are not 4-color. And they sneak it in, and it's just some of Warren Ellis's best. I think it's Alice. I gotta look it up.
Have you seen the Orville?
Yeah, I actually really like the Orville. That was way better than I thought it was going to be.
Oh,
Kurt Busiek. I'm sorry, Kurt Busiek wrote Astro City.
The first 2 episodes were kind of standard, what I expected, and it was good. I enjoyed it. And then when they started addressing social issues in the other 10 episodes, I'm like, now this is great, because I have stupid, asinine, juvenile humor, and really well said social commentary. This is beautiful. And it feels like a crew on a military ship. It's more so than Star Trek, which was, I didn't need the surroundings to be dingy, but people are people, and not everybody's going to see eye to eye. And, they had a written rule in the Star Trek scripts that you weren't allowed to have confrontation between shipmates without like an outside influence. You can't have an ongoing personality clash. It was against Gene Roddenberry's rules. So yeah, and I understand Discovery removes that rule and allows you to have interpersonal clashes on a regular basis between.
Oh, I got like 2 episodes into Discovery, and I was like, nope.
Really?
Good.
I haven't seen.
Yeah, I'm not a Trekkie, but
neither am I. Yeah. But I've generally enjoyed them often because that's all there was. But other times, like Deep Space Nine, once you're at the end of season 3 and forward, great show. Best Star Trek yet, until the Orville came out and kicked it out of its place without even being Star Trek.
I feel like the Orville is the show that Seth MacFarlane has always wanted to make, and it's glorious.
I would rather see Family Guy go off air than Orville.
I don't think we're ever going to let Family Guy.
We have to wait until 2019 for season 2.
Oh, that's too long.
Well, he was projecting for this fall, but he bottom line said, I would
Maybe
rather
not.
take longer and give you less episodes per season so you have the quality there than give you 22 rushed episodes where we're feeding you a bunch of stupid filler. And I'm like, no, I'm good with that. I watch BBC series. I wait 3 years between fucking episodes of Sherlock. So, okay, I'll wait.
It's not like it's not as lowball humor as Family Guy is, right?
No, not at all.
South Park nailed it when they made that whole series about like how Family Guy makes their episodes, and it's just like a bunch of balls with seals. And that's exactly what it is. It's meant to be this non sequitur stuff. It's really easy to do. The Orville is not non sequitur.
No,
so
it's well thought out and intelligent. Then again, if you've watched any of Seth MacFarlane's other work besides Family Guy, it's quite often intelligent with a commentary. And reason I love
a little bit of that going on with American Dad, but it's still a lot of non sequitur. What else are you thinking about?
I didn't enjoy American Dad. I watched like 2 episodes and went. Actually,
I'm Family Guy with a new coat. Whatever.
I'm going over to South Park now, which I've always liked because yes, it's filthy and stupid and juvenile and asinine. But 3 out of 4 episodes has a message to it, an intelligent message that has been covered with a pile of juvenile doo-doo. So I get best of both worlds here.
So I refer to South Park as hyper satire, right? It's not just satirical. It's satirical taken as far as they can possibly take it.
Mm-hmm.
and still be recognizable. And the reason that there's so much like messaging in it is the way they do the show. There's a really great documentary about it, but like they essentially have a lot of the elements figured out
Skipper,
and
here's you.
set up ahead of time, and then they cut it all together in like a week or two.
Yeah, I know.
Which is like crazy.
I remember. I think it was the Elian Gonzalez. If you remember the young child in Miami who was hiding in a closet and got quasi-cornered by the ATF as they burst in the house. And, like, they had already done this week's episode, and by the next week they had done a complete episode centered on that quickly. And I'm like, that's impressive. Yeah. These things aren't in a can for 3 months waiting to be on air. They are flexible enough.
Some of it is like some of their C and B line and like the things they're carrying across the whole season. They're like, oh, we know that we're gonna have this scene where Eric and Butters do this crazy thing, and they can prepare that ahead of time. Yeah. And maybe they'll like cut new lines into it at the very end. But yeah, for the most part, it's all put together inside of 2 weeks, which is
absolutely
crazy.
And thank goodness, computer animation came along, so they don't have to cut out all those shapes and do them that way anymore. And
yeah, the original the first 2 seasons were not done with any computer animation, and they were not done that fast.
No, they weren't. And you know what else I liked? But only the first 6 episodes, because that was its first season, and after that it just kind of did the same stuff and not as well. Ren and Stimpy.
Oh. I don't know. I mean, I was a kid back for Ren and Stimpy, man. All I remember about Ren and Stimpy are the highlight moments, right? Like Stimpy and the red button.
That's enough,
right? I remember that.
That's what you need to remember is those highlight moments. The Magic Nose Goblin collection under the table, Powdered Toast Man, Log,
and Log.
Okay, Skipper says, you don't have to call out each time I throw bits. I'm just sending them as I get them. Skipper, tell you what we'll do. On shows like this where we have a few people here, we'll give a little nod at the camera when it happens. Sometimes shout it out. Most of the time, just, roll on. When we have 30 to 40 people in the room and you throw bits, we are so calling it out because then they're going to go, I want them to thank me too. And they will throw their bits at our face. That's that. He's not going to answer. We don't
Everybody
have to
wants
pause.
bits at their face.
Absolutely. You're familiar with the Twitch bit thing, right?
Not entirely, no. We run on Twitch, but that's just so we can have an accessible chat room.
Let me educate
when we do our show.
Let me educate you. Bits is something they can pay for to get. You get like 1,000 for $10 or 800 for $10 or whatever. Or they can watch videos. And it'll give them 5 to 100 bits for each video that they watch, and they have to interact, which means click on it. What we get out of it, it's like them throwing a penny per bit. So if he throws 100 bits, we're getting $1. Now, they don't pay out, they being Twitch, don't pay out till you reach $100. So you're not, when you have $17 over 3 months, you're not seeing anything yet. But, there have been shows where we have, I don't know, $80 in one show, So, and a lot of this is via bits or subscriptions. As a matter of fact, all of it is via bits and subscriptions. There is nothing else that Twitch pays out for. So that's why we encourage it. And if you guys are on air and somebody throws some bits and you hear it little, give you a little ding or whatever, give them a little kudos, encourage them. And, maybe it pays for your next thing of cigarettes. Maybe it pays for your soda. Maybe it pays for your electricity. It all depends on what you scrape together.
I figured there was some sort of reward system. I didn't realize that it was built sort of like a MMORPG kind of experience deal. That's cool.
It's cash.
Yeah.
What I'm doing now, because I realized in the chat you can't click on links.
Nope.
So I'm going to put in there, go to the Kickstarter and check out, because you can search.
You know
so
what?
I put Mist of
I can click
Akuma.
on it. I can click on it.
Can you?
Yeah, I can click on it.
in our chat, but not in their chat.
No, the one
I'm looking
streaming
in the
on Twitch.
Twitch chat one. Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah. Now, on the
Maybe
screen,
it's just me.
where I have it on the screen separately, you got the second chat, the one that they'll see on YouTube. They cannot click on that. That is correct. But the
Yeah,
initial...
so I'm going to throw that in there also.
Okay, yeah. It doesn't hurt to
Because
double
this will
up and give
be,
another
they'll be
route.
watching it, able to watch, because I'll be able to watch this later on Twitch and on YouTube.
Yeah, that's something to keep in mind, Mike. We have it live right now, but after 24 hours, according to the rules, I'm allowed to post it over to YouTube. So I export it over there, and I'll throw a link your way so you can go, hey, here's the YouTube link, and you send out an update going, here's the YouTube link of the show. PG-13 warning for them. Let them know. That. But yeah, that way you have that for the next 2 weeks. Going, you want to know more about the show? Here we are talking about it in detail. Or not the show, Kickstarter.
Yeah, Skipper. I know they're clickable right now, but I'm thinking for later. They can't click on them later. So
once it's on YouTube, you can. And
it's all good.
Maybe
thinking ahead.
They can pause it, of course, and that's something else. Those links you gave me, when I put it up on YouTube, I'm dropping them down in the description for you. So hopefully every little bit,
That makes it easier.
We finally have spring-like weather, and
it's nice.
It is, but you got the clouds rolling in, and temperatures only dropping.
They're gonna. It's gonna snow Saturday. It's beautiful now. They said it's going to snow Saturday.
What do you got going up there in Pittsburgh?
I remember I saw snow. So we got a lot of hills and crap.
Right.
So there'll be snow on the ground if you wake up and look out there at like 5 in the morning, and then we'll hit up to 50 degrees in the afternoon, and then it'll get cold again around about 9 o'clock, 10.
You know how I told you I have a friend over there in Pittsburgh, actually out in Beaver. Yeah, she's going to be on the show Monday when we're talking about cooking and cannibalism.
She's a chef.
Yeah, we have 2 professional chefs on the show, and the third hour where we get a little more inappropriate.
My favorite disease is from cannibalism.
Mad cow disease?
No, it's an encephalopathic pathogen called kuru, I think it is.
Oh.
It's called the laughing death is the better term for it.
Well,
so
that sounds fun.
It is. It's super fun. I keep telling my dad I'm going to eat his brain. The way it works is you have to eat the brain of your genetic ancestor, and the prions in the material latch onto your own prions and then start tearing stuff apart. And a couple of things will start happening, but the main thing is that you'll start laughing sporadically until eventually you start laughing so hard that you just don't stop until you die.
Run out of breath, burst a blood vessel, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about this Torque thing. I wonder what kind of mechanic.
Oh, is he coming for TechoCon? SpecialCon? Sir Skipper.
Oh, there you go.
Says he's in. TechoCon's a cool con. One of my artists will be there. He's preparing some crazy costume for it. I forget what it is. He normally goes all out. His name's Nathaniel Batchelor. And what's the one he keeps selling a ton of prints for? Edgar Allan Poe.
Nice.
Tell your son to look for an artist with Edgar Allan Poe prints. Where's Edgar? Where are you at? There he is. Specifically that one.
Down
I remember he sold it.
Hold it down just a little bit.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
We actually have a con coming up in 3 weeks in Williamsburg, Virginia, called Raven Con, and it originally started out as pretty much an Edgar Allan Poe con. Grown a lot.
And Valentine Wolf is going to be there playing, and most of their songs are based on Edgar Allan Poe's work.
When you're out there, trip out to Baltimore and you can go visit his house. Or at least the Edgar Allan Poe Museum is there.
Yeah, we know about that. We're an hour from Williamsburg. We're in Central Virginia. So
okay, all right.
Yeah, and we are known to do road trips. For example, we went to Philly just to get a Philly cheesesteak. Philly.
I wanted a cheesesteak, so we drove.
Oh, I was just talking to somebody about this East Harbor restaurant on Race Street. So I've spent a lot of time in Chinese restaurants. I worked in Chinese restaurants for like 4 years. The best Chinese food I have ever had, hands down. It was the only place I ate almost when I went to PAX East.
Nice.
East Harbor Restaurant, Race Street. Oh.
It's something I I will go into, until they know me, I'll go into a Chinese restaurant or a Indian restaurant, and I'll be like, I want you to cook me this dish, but I want you to cook it like you would
Hold
cook.
on.
Go ahead.
What's the artist again? Skipper's asking.
Nathaniel Batchelor.
Okay.
He's typing it
Go
out
ahead.
for you. There you go. But I want them to make it like they would make it for their family. So when it says spicy, and you're like, oh, I love General Tso's chicken. Let's have it spicy, though. And you bite into it, and they're like, we made it spicy. And you're like, no, you didn't. This is still something I can feed my, kid.
That is white people spice. We want Asian spice.
Yes, please.
That's how I always try to put it. I'm like, please make it as spicy as you possibly can. Like, ignore everything else. Just as spicy as you can make it.
There was one restaurant we go to, Ginger Red, and I told him spicy, and it was a curry. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was, like, I was sweating, and my mouth was glowing.
It should be a religious experience.
It was, yeah, it was good stuff. And that one I walked away happy, because I'm like, oh, I have to add my rice to this, because, whew, yeah, I was happy.
Yeah.
It was good times. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about your website. Now, I'm not going to pull it up again, as I explained about my connection fund. By the way, what are you wearing? Is that like your old man Logan flannel you're wearing there?
It is a very, very much too big flannel robe. I call it my lumberjack wizard robe.
There you go.
Now, when he asks, what are you wearing, you're supposed to say khakis.
Oh. I don't have khakis anymore, I don't think.
You know what? A
like
lumberjack
Jake from
wizard.
State Farm.
How cool would a lumberjack wizard be in apocalyptic setting? Oh, Pikachu.
Actually,
a lumberjack wizard in apocalyptic setting.
When I made the book, we had all the backers vote for who they wanted to have in the as major villains available, and overwhelmingly, the vote came in for Merlin.
Okay.
Like Merlin Ambrosius.
Right.
So I have Apocalyptic Merlin. And then once I had Apocalyptic Merlin, I was like, well, I can't have Merlin and not have Morgan Le Fay. So I have also Apocalyptic Morgan Le Fay. And she's like completely delusional. She thinks all undead are people and all people are undead. So she's got, I worked so hard to get that pun. What was the pun? Hold on. I remember I was like, I'm going to have to write 4. And she has Knights of the Living Dead.
Gotcha.
That's her version of the Round Table.
Yeah. Nice.
I like using I like using mythological and historical figures in my books.
Well, again, it's that attachment to the real world where I'm coming in, I don't know anything about your lore, and I don't give a damn about your lore. But you throw something in there that I can recognize, and suddenly I've got my in straight into the center of your lore. So now, those are the tree trunk, and all your lore around it is the branches and leaves covering everything, and now I'm interested. So yeah, it's a great way to do it, is bring in that. Sorry, seeing which cats we got around. We got Cuttlefish the cat, Zazzles, Squirrel is over there, and then Mr. Buddy Otter is right here. There we are. 4 out of 8.
I have Van Yaren.
I can see
She's grumpy.
Harry Housing Cat over there.
I took Felix's bed away so I can make room for my books. I don't know where he's at.
Oh, poor Felix. He's probably busy pooping or barfing your shoes.
He's probably on the radiator in the sun. I think that's what he's doing.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's
He's getting old. He's about 14, 15 now.
You're doing good then. Not bad. Andrea's is an old one too. Most of us are young, like 4 or 5 years old tops, so no big deal. But hers is 17.
This one's about 17.
Yeah.
She's old.
She's cranky and angry and plays by growling and hissing. It's just like when you tried to, wrestle with your grandmother. Same thing.
Nah, Felix is getting a little bit cranky, but he's more like just loud cranky. He's not like actually cranky.
He's like the loud old man. Oi!
He's demanding is what he is.
Gotcha.
Like, I want to play. I want to play. We're going to play. Can we play? And just continues. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. So what other
Yeah.
gaming? You ever? Let's see. Let's go into your gaming history here. One of my favorite gaming systems, actually two of my favorite gaming systems. We'll go with two at once. That way you have a variety to choose from. One is the 1980s version of Marvel superheroes.
Oh, phaser.
Yeah, because
Yeah. Okay.
1 percentile, one chart, good to go.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who speak very fondly of it. I've never played with it. Every time I'm looking at it, I'm like, I'm sure it can be fun, but I don't know.
It
I don't know.
was such a simple setup. Character generation is not awesome because you're rolling randomly for everything. But there's ways to adjust that slightly. You can break it into a point system if you want. You can at least let them put the stats where they want them. You just roll 7 stats and let them choose that way if they wanted a stronger character, etc.
Yeah.
But the other one, and mechanically and role-playing wise, my absolute favorite is the White Wolf system. You ever play Vampire? The Master.
I have.
Yeah.
I played some Vampire. Didn't Aberrant also use the same dots and all the same stuff?
Who?
Aberrant. It was a superhero game.
I don't know. I've never played that one. I'm not familiar with it. But it's possible. And I've seen
think
other
that
systems, like Shadowrun, used a very similar system. But it
Yeah, but
sucked.
Shadowrun was all D6s,
Yeah, but
and you get your buckets.
yeah, but it bogged down. Whereas White Wolf, it naturally lent itself to role playing, to storytelling, to character development, and the thing,
Oh, so you're just talking about the break between narrative and simulation. So an RPG is going to be some combination, because essentially what you're doing when you're playing tabletop RPG is you're sitting down, you're collectively telling a story.
correct.
That story will have two things. It will have storytelling, and it will have some sort of rules element that informs the storytelling.
A mechanic.
So, right, it's going to be how much simulation do you want and how much narration do you want. I always use GURPS as my go-to example, where there is almost it's like 85% simulation, and then there's some narration stuff that happens. Pathfinder is probably more like 66 points simulation, and the rest is narration. D&D 5e half and half. There's definitely more narrative influence in D&D 5e.
In the new
and that has and that has to do with so with Paizo, they have everything is built on the back of their subscription model and Pathfinder Society, right? Like they sell core books, and that's important, and they won't do that, and they also have comics and all this other shit. But they define most of their schedule and their budgets and stuff from knowing that people are going to buy this adventure path and this next adventure path and they're going to use them at their tables. So the importance for the simulation is much, much higher, because they need the game to work the same way for table Z as it does table A, table 47, 9084, whatever.
Have you?
And
Go ahead.
to that end, their special events at cons. Have you ever seen one of those fucking things?
Mm-mm.
I walked in on one. Straight up, it was like over 1,000 fucking people sitting at tables playing in the same game. They had volunteers rolling around, taking hand signals from GMs at individual tables, relaying those to the master table, and then they project different shit on the screens. You can't do that with a narrative-based game.
No,
it has to have simulation that will carry over for each table to be essentially equal.
Wow.
It's crazy.
No,
and as a designer, it's much better to have a higher simulation game to play with as opposed to narration, because it's easier for me to reliably produce the same results if there's a heavier basis on the mechanics than the narration part.
See, something I've considered doing as a writer is, you get the people who read my books and they're like, oh, you should have a gaming world. I'm like, well, some of it came from my gaming world that I made up when I was 13 because I couldn't afford to buy all the supplements at 13 years old. Especially when there was Greyhawk and then Forgotten Realms came out and they went, Greyhawk, overly complex and detailed with a weather system and ruling cast system made by Gary Gygax himself, master of detail. And then you had Forgotten Realms that are like, we will make you buy 3 new books every fucking month. Enjoy. And it was a beautiful world, don't get me wrong. I mean, but I have thought about doing just campaign setting books that the way I would design them and write them out is you can take that book and buy it and put it over any other gaming system. In other words, I would have no mechanic, just enough information that they can apply their mechanic with hopefully minimal work.
System agnostic is what you're
Is that what they call
to.
it now?
That's what they call it, system agnostic.
Now,
There's some people have had success with that. Like Green Ronin released Freeport originally as a system agnostic book.
I remember.
And it was a great book. I bought it for my friend Nick, the pirate guy I was talking about earlier. And then they also released a Pathfinder version, and I think a 5th edition version, and a Shadow of the Demon Lord version. So it went to systems, but it started as system agnostic.
Right. Yeah, it's I like that. It's there was a few. For example, you remember the Traps book? You had like Traps, Traps 2, Traps 4.
Nah, I think that was before my time.
Well, basically they set up traps, but they didn't assign damage or anything. They said it would cause, and it was just wonderful, horrible traps that as a player you'd never want to see, but as a DM you giggle while flipping through the book going, I can kill my player so many ways now. And I'm not a player killer, but it still entertains me. Have you played Star Wars, Edge of the Empire, Age of Rebellion?
I have actually played Edge of the Empire.
I like their dice system, because their dice system is a storytelling mechanism.
Fudge dice. Although theirs are not fudge dice, they're totally fudge dice, which originated in the Fate RPG. I think my DM was just it was just a bad game for him and me to play together, because we used to be fairly competitive sort of relationship with regular D&D, and then we went to this thing where it's highly narrative and the GM has way more control over that narrative, and it went sideways pretty hard.
Well, that's actually the beauty part. In my games, I encourage my players, when you fail your roll but you get advantages, throw ideas at me for what might have happened. When you succeed with your hit or whatever skill you're trying to use, but you get the disadvantage dice built up against you, come on, work with me. Let's make a movie on our head. And when you're using the destiny points, flipping from light side to dark side, whatever, be creative for me. Let's have some fun. And I had some decent players, Andrea and a few other friends that I've played with for years, and then I had younger players. I was introducing my son to role-playing games through this, and he never quite grasped it, but that's a matter of just creativity exercises. Realizing where a reasonable limit is, not selling yourself short and not going way over. But yeah, it's with the right group of people, which I think is essential for any game that I'm going to enjoy.
It's much more important to have the right group of people for a narrative game.
Yeah.
Because what that whole conversation I just had about Pathfinder Society. I look forward to trying it again with a different group, because it definitely has a lot of strengths. And I enjoy playing other like fudge dice games, like we did the Demolished ones. I had a blast doing that. So
see, yesterday is the first time I heard the term fudge dice.
Oh.
With the other guy I told you I had on yesterday, talking about it, we touched on these games a little, and he told me about the Fate system and everything, and I had never heard of it. But yeah, I just enjoy. Something else is nice is your first time your character's out the door, you're rolling like 7 or 8 dice to do things, and it just feels good. You just feel like, look, I'm awesome. I've got that many dice. Even though half of them are negative dice, you still feel good about it. And then of course the destiny.
I was never much for like the low level play stuff. Whenever I run games and stuff, and pretty much everyone, you can build a 3rd level character. Everybody, like I'm never the guy who's like, yeah, game, 1st level.
With a superhero game, I love starting them low level, street level, nitty gritty. Let's.
But that's even that's a step up above a 1st level D&D fighter, right?
Right. It is. Yeah. But then again, theoretically, a 1st level D&D fighter should be a step above your baker, your candlestick maker, etc. But it just doesn't translate well when you're sitting down at a D&D table. Maybe you go up against the city guards and the game master doesn't realize you can't make all the city guards 1st level fighters. Look at our police force, and thank you for everything they do, but look at them, especially out here in the country. They are not a 1st level fighter. You get a 19-year-old boxer who's trained in the ring for 6 months, or somebody who went and got their black belt through their childhood. Now we can discuss how martial arts doesn't work well in a real fight because you've got to be non-form. You got to be able to. But yeah, the bottom line is not all cops are first level fighters or third level fighters. They're zero level NPCs, and they should only have in D&D, instead of rolling on the D10 with a con bonus, they should have 4 hit points max. Where one dagger, yeah, it can take them out. That's how it should be when you go up against 12 city guards. I do love the new D&D armor class system, and I discussed this yesterday too. Yeah, where you can
in 5th edition, the numbers are definitely like, so if you're playing Pathfinder and you're like a 10th level fighter, and I attack you with 8 goblins,
right,
you're gonna wipe the floor with those goblins.
Yes, and they're not.
If you're doing that in D&D 5e, the goblins are gonna whoop your ass in D&D 5e.
Yeah, I use a similar example, a little more built up in that. Your group of 10th level characters can be attacked by 100 kobolds, and you're in real danger. Or a village of 100 people can defend themselves from a dragon now. They can hit them. They're can definitely do damage.
They have more impact than before, for sure. No doubt there.
And I'm also the DM. Depending on the critter and where you're at, when that critter loses half of its hit points, it's leaving.
Yeah.
A bear in the woods, you bring it down to half health, it's not staying to finish that fight. It's done. Just like, what else am I thinking?
I do a lot of morale rolls.
Yeah, and they
the more messed up it gets, it's like, you know what? I'm done.
Now, if you got your 4 goblins and you're in their lair, they're probably fighting to the death. Except for that last one that's leaving and showing up 8 games later with an army behind it. And you're like, what the hell happened? Well, he went out and became a chieftain because he lived.
Always try to save the last NPC.
I do. If anything, just so they can get up the next night as they hear a noise outside of their camp, and it's a little more woohoo for them. This is why I don't run. I have been running games for 35 years now. And I avoid playing with random groups of strangers. People are like, you should come to the gaming shop or run a game. You're a great game master. I'm like, yeah, but then I got that idiot that's there. We're all idiots.
Yeah.
Or maybe I don't. We're at a con. I've never gamed at a con. I've gone in the gaming room, but I've never sat down at a table. One time, because I have a buddy that designed the game, and he was play testing it. And I trusted him to keep things in hand. And
I'm actually pro gaming convention sessions because everybody sits down with the right intent and the right attitude because they paid to be there. Their time is valuable. That's why they're doing the convention. Like, I haven't had a single bad actor in a game that I've run at a con. I've run a lot of con games.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if nothing else, try at least once because I think you'll be very pleased by the environment that you find.
I have some buddies. They disappear into that game room all weekend. I'll see them for 7 minutes where they're in transit from here to there. And I've told them, grab me by the arm, drag my ass into that room, put me at the table next to you, and I have no doubt I'll enjoy myself. But
well, you got to buy the ticket ahead of time most of the time. So you got to reserve your spot. And
a lot of the cons I do, it's walk in, sit down.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's.
Yeah, I do.
I'm used to like Gen Con and stuff like that.
Yeah, I avoid the cons with 10,000 plus people. I love a con with 2,000 less because as a speaker and as a public figure, if you will, I want to be able to interact with people. That's why I'm there. And to only be able to interact on a 1-to-20 ratio instead of a 1-to-1 ratio or a 1-to-4 ratio, I just enjoy it more when I can interact on a more personal level with folks. Or stand in the hall talking to the person I know for 10, 15 minutes.
I did Gen Con the past 4 years, and I got paid last year to do it, and if I'd have to get paid more this time to do it again, because, it's crazy.
I got to a point where my general rule is because I would go to these cons, and I'd go on panels and run a show and do all this, and I'd work all weekend, and it cost me $400 to $700 between hotel, food, travel, and I'm like, I'm not paying hundreds of dollars to work anymore. I have to break even. I'm not looking to turn a profit. Just don't make me lose money.
And Gen Con's insane expensive at this point.
I'm sure.
The last time I went and I was paying my own room, I didn't even get a room because I'd figured out a parking lot about a mile away in sight of the sheriff's office with like an equipment shed for the sheriffs. So like I felt pretty safe in the parking lot. I just slept in my van.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I can pay $2,000 for a hotel room for 3 days, or I could just park here.
Yeah, when people are like, "Oh, are you coming down to Dragon Con? You're going to be on the steampunk panels and the alternate history," and I'm like, "So tickets are this much, hotel is this much. If you get in the hotel they're in." No, I'm not.
Oh yeah.
It's I think
and just getting a hotel room at Gen Con is practically impossible.
Yeah. No, I'm not doing it. That isn't to say I wouldn't do it, that I'm 100% against it. Just it's not going to be the thing I pick out. If I have a good reason to be there and the finances to cover it, whether it's paid for or I'm filthy rich and can afford it, yeah, I'll go just to experience it. I've been to bigger cons. I want to see who's like in the.
I might do Origins this year because it's within driving distance.
Which one?
Drive out in the morning. Origins.
See, with the gaming conventions especially, I'd like to go, but also I've hit that point where I have my 4 or 5 favorite game systems for whatever reason, whether I like the campaign setting or whether I like the mechanics. And I don't have time to play all of them. I don't have time to play one some months. So I'm not, I want to buy more games, but I wouldn't use them and I know it. So that's why I love what you're doing, because here you have something I can take with a system I already own, have, know, experience, and I can go poop right on top of it. Look, I've got my new toy. And that's why when I first saw your stuff, I guess a month ago, I'm like, no, this is awesome. He's showing me how I can use D&D 5th edition to make superheroes, to make a post-apocalyptic world, to make a low-level street campaign of anything, or just run a classic D&D campaign. And that's another thing that maybe some people don't realize. With your books, they can buy this one that you have up right now. So we've got Eastern Fantasy, Steampunk Noir, and they can play a wizard in that world. It's their world. They can do what they want. You can have a bard, a fighter, a cleric, and a wizard running around together in this world. Mind you, might want to dress them in the appropriate clothing, but what is better than a wizard in a zoot suit? That's a beautiful thing, right?
Clockwork Wizard in a zoot suit.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's, and that's why with what you're doing it's beautiful, and I got a little bit hard.
Well, one of the reasons the other reasons the Hypercore started was I wanted to run a Cyberpunk game, but like I couldn't get people to spend the time to read the Shadowrun book.
Oh well, that's
so
probably not a big loss.
We'll just do Cyberpunk Pathfinder. That's just how we'll do it. Because you all know Pathfinder, right? Like, here's a small packet of rules you can read and we can do this.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have the books already. I loved the concept of Shadowrun. I loved everything about it. The game mechanics were, when you take an hour and a half to do 18 to 24 seconds of combat, you run through 4 rounds. Oh, no.
One 4-hour session of Shadowrun involves like an hour of counting out dice.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just, and for it to be something as similar in concept as White Wolf, you take a stat, you take a skill, you roll that many dice. White Wolf, it flows, it moves. And I don't know why the difference is. I'm sure if I took the two side by side and compared, I'd figure it out. But Shadowrun.
There are other problems with Shadowrun too. Like it breaks when somebody gets wide reflexes, or basically when they break the action economy. So a drone rigger can do it by having lots of drones.
Mm-hmm.
Street Sam can do it by getting wide reflexes. A magician person or a phys adept can do it by taking special power. And if you don't have that, then you spend the combat round getting your one turn in the combat round, while they get like 4 turns in the combat round.
Right. See, and that's where you have to change your whole gaming style. It's kind of like when your D&D characters get 8th level, you're still good at adventuring, but when you see it like 12th, you have to turn it into... You don't have to, but to have a quality game, you might as well just turn it into a political game at this point in time. You want to
There's a sweet spot in the design for both Pathfinder and D&D 5e that's between 5th level, where you get access to fly and fireball.
Right.
That's typically the marker for any
Correct.
game system, fireball and fly.
Yes.
Because you can do terrible things with just a regular strength and being able to fly. And then it tops out around 12th level for Pathfinder and D&D 5e, because then you start getting like teleport everywhere.
Right.
I can scry on anything.
And that's why you have to change what the character's goals, actions, influences, the repercussions of their actions, which if they're like, no, I just want a dungeon crawl. Well, okay, we can do just a dice rolling game with a little personality. Or we can take, you have these huge abilities now, and it is world-changing abilities, or it should be. It's, unless you're in Forgotten Realms and everybody has 3 magic items. The baker's got 2. What? That's right.
Yeah.
I love stupid magic items. For example, you put that call out for magic items. I have 2 magic items I have always used. And one I actually turned into a spell, and it was like a 2nd level spell called Conson's Water Seal. And basically you put this on your cloak or your boots or whatever item of clothing, and they were self-cleaning. Nothing stuck to them. Everything just kind of beaded off of them. And then you had like if a butcher has a magic item, it would be a magical knife that never needs sharpened. It doesn't get a +1 to hit or a +1 to damage. It's just a knife that never needs sharpened. So if somebody detects magic, oh, it has a weak glow. Look, I've got a magic butcher knife now. Yeah, and all it does is it doesn't rust. It doesn't need sharpened.
So the first one of those enchanted trinkets articles just came in while we were doing the show. Like the layout guy finished it, and will be on the Insider Patreon this month.
Nice. I left it in my email for like weeks, and I kept looking at it. But with all the other projects, I'm like, I don't have time to write out a couple thousand words on this. And it
has a steak knife that never gets bedol. By the way, Eric wrote one of those. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's basic stuff, like why wouldn't a baker have an apron that repels flour?
What did he do? Like a fire poker that you can like start campfires with really fast, and they all have mechanics where like you can. It's a cool little magic item that you can just enjoy and have for flavor,
right?
And small things, or you can like break it and get one decent effect out of it.
Oh, that's reasonable.
Because that's one of my problems with D&D 5e. Because like you're going to be paying so much gold all the time for any magic item if you can even get it, and the ranges are very large. But like, what if you're first level and you just want something cool and fun, like enchanted trinkets?
Something else I made. I would have it looked like 3 6-sided dice stacked on top without the pips, so that size, a cylinder but squared out, and you'd pull the top dice section off, and it had a permanently heated metal wire, and it was a fire starter, and it's that simple.
Oh, that's great.
What does it do? Well, not much of anything, but it's something your first level character can have that makes you go, I'm special. And like elves, most elves, given the player, I would let them have either the silent boots or the camo cloak. Because I feel like, especially if you're a wood elf, this is what you did. You're a fighter. You did scouting for your tribe, clan, city, whatever it is. This would be a reasonable standard issue for your first level fighter. And by that I mean he has the training, he has the background, he has the potential for growth, as opposed to the 0 level cop who has 4 hit points and a jelly donut. So, yeah, and dwarven stuff, like dwarves, I would let them start with an axe that doesn't dull or rust or something like that.
No, I thought it's a very open design space, and it definitely needs filled.
Yeah, I didn't go with the Forgotten Realms thing where everybody get it, but I also didn't go as far as the Tolkien world where, well, in the Tolkien world, we have 4 magic items ever.
Yeah.
And
it's ridiculous.
Well, it's nice in how bare bones it is, and you got to rely on your own skill level and whatnot. But on the other hand, part of the medieval fantasy, it's fun to have magic items or magic.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind handing
it doesn't need to be the Pathfinder Christmas tree, but there should be magic items around.
Yeah. They used to call it the Monty Hall campaign because of the game show What's Behind Door Number 1, and it'd just be this huge pile of stuff. And people also don't realize, I was always big on encumbrance, where people are like, oh, I've got 1,000 gold pieces. I'm like, you got to realize that's 100 pounds or whatever weight system they were using at the given time. So to lug, oh, I've got, thousands of copper and thousands of silver and a couple thousand gold and a couple hundred platinum. yeah, you've got 2 to 3 horses now too, because you're putting that much weight on them. Or why would I want a wagon? I can't charge across because you have all that shit. And don't tell me you have 5 weapons, because I will walk into the other room, pull out weapons, and go, put these on your body. I had one guy that told me he wore his staff across his shoulders. not in a back sheath, across his shoulders.
Yeah,
I'm like,
across the shoulders.
hold on while I go get a broom and make you walk through a door.
Yeah.
They're like, oh no, you could do
That's
it.
ridiculous.
Or I could use my 2-handed sword in that 5-foot hallway. You could poke people. You can't slash people. Yeah. Ever since my teens, I've been that guy where I'm like, I love to give you stuff, but let's not be stupid.
I mean, it depends on the game. Sometimes I'm stingy, sometimes I'm not. I have one guy who complains all the time that he never gets stuff, and then the other players are just like, shut up, what are you talking about? But, you know.
I love giving out one-use magic items. You know, whether it's a potion or, yeah, like the oil of sharpness type concept. You know, oh, for the next 24 hours, my sword gets a +1/+1. Because then I'm like, okay, so here you have something really cool, but it's not a forever item. And you're going to wait for the right moment to use it. You're going to hopefully use it wiser. Or if you waste it in the first combat you ever get into, well, there you go. Let's see how good you are with this. And those are much more readily available if you walk into any reasonably sized town, village, hamlet. You know, but you go into the place with, oh, they got a town meeting hall and 12 buildings around it, and everybody else lives a half mile or more on their farm. Yeah, you're not going to find a healing potion laying around there. Or if you do, the mayor has it, or the high priest has it. That's theirs. And that high priest is 3rd level, very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, Mists of Akuma, they're, I'd say, uncommon. Magic items are for the most part uncommon. In Varanthia, they're very common. It's kind of Forgotten Realms feel. Hypercore, they're very common because they can be sold. There's like, you can buy a magic canned soda. It's called Shenchi Mana Plus. It's very popular. Toy 99 Wasteland, they're really rare because radiation negates magic.
Oh, interesting concept. I like that. And,
Yeah,
and I
except for necromancy.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Matter of fact, the novel that I wrote has something similar where, certain radiations actually increased certain types of magic, whereas it dampened others. Because I always believe magic should have a science backing. You don't have to explain it all, you don't have to go through it all, but have a reasonable thing for it to exist. And hi. Hold on, he needs attention. I guess you can't see him on the camera. You see me on it.
We can see him.
Can you see him?
That's Giraffe.
Yeah, he's our big galoot. And if you rub his belly hanging down, he'll nurse on any kind of furry blanket that he can get a hold of.
Yeah, for the Decopunk book that came out last month, everything, there are no, so like there are magic items in the world, but for the most part everybody uses this stuff called Inaqua. And it's this limitless, clean energy source that, in addition to being like awesome and powering cars and all this other shit, it's because 1920s tech, you know, it elongates the lives of good creatures. So like the whole world, like everybody's just living longer as long as they're good of heart. So evil is sort of dying out, and then the mad scientists that have been like evading the authorities for centuries enact this plan that corrupts a whole bunch of souls. So like 1 in every 100,000 people are just irredeemably evil, and those are the characters you play, and like you join together and try to throw down society.
Let's talk about that concept, because that's something we haven't mentioned yet. So in this game that you have coming out, there's a dichotomy. There's a split. Yes, you can play the good guys, but there's this whole thing you have where you play the bad guys, where you're trying to bring anarchy, chaos, and tear down society.
That's not the Kickstarter for Mists of Akuma. That's a whole different thing. But yeah, Book of Vile, or I'm sorry, not the Book of Vile Darkness, because the Book of Vile Darkness is not OGL and is owned by Wizards of the Coast. This is like an homage to the Book of Vile Darkness called the Book of Exalted Darkness.
Gotcha.
And it's
good cover.
Gorgeous.
It is.
Yeah.
Nice cover.
I didn't even put the logo on it because, like, how could you?
It's like the throwback to the, what is it, the 3 or 3.5 books where they look like leather tomes, and it was very cool. And
3.5. Yeah, we talked about that.
So yeah, that's what you were just talking about. And by the way, in a tech society, I feel like it goes the same way. People are like, oh, but you can have this super great weapon. Yeah, they exist, but it doesn't mean you're going to pick them up at Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you still have to go black market or be, you know, get it from a high, powerful government official. You know, the president could hand you one, but that's like the king handing you the magic sword.
Well, part of the deal with the Anaqua stuff is that if it has enough Anaqua, like you can get a flashlight and powered by Anaqua, and it doesn't matter if you're good or evil, it doesn't care. There's not enough Anaqua in it to detect you. Mm-hmm. But if it's big enough to detect the person wielding it, it detects the alignment and it'll react differently. So like if you're good, it has certain effects. If you're neutral, it's like okay. And if you're evil, you either have to trick it into thinking you're neutral, or it won't work for you at all, or you can try to pervert it, in which case it works super efficiently for a shorter period of time, and then in most cases explodes. Nice. So, like, one of my games, they forgot about this, and I just told them the last session. I had explained exactly what would happen when they perverted a vehicle or something, and it was a long conversation. I was like, okay, they got to remember this. And they steal, like, a pickup truck, and they start driving away with it perverted, and I'm like, okay, can you give me a save, like, after a minute? And they failed to save, and I'm like, all right. Does anybody want to jump out? And they're like, why would we jump out? I was like, oh, okay. So the truck just exploded with the entire party still inside it. They survived, but like they were very angry.
Well, that's how they learn. Especially if your DM ever goes, are you sure? Take a minute. Just take a minute.
Yes. Yeah, that was the point of the Robo-Hitler story. The GM says, are you sure? Really be sure.
Yeah. Be ready for the repercussions. Even if you have no clue what they're going to be, just realize there's something coming here. Yeah, it's, you know, so talking about your Anaqua and whatnot, I'm just imagining Batman, Wolverine, and Deadpool would be interesting dealing with these items. Because they're not necessarily good, but they're not necessarily evil, but they're not quite neutral either. It kind of depends on the situation, how they're going to act.
I feel like Batman would be probably good in most circumstances. Wolverine, not so much, and Deadpool...
Now, we could look at him and say, it all depends on which version you're dealing with.
Yeah.
It depends on the moment, because obviously Deadpool, he's going to save the little girl who's about to be hit by a car in a burning building. He's absolutely going to do that.
He also, like, kidnaps an old blind woman and holds her against her will for a long time.
That's my point. But he feeds her, and he takes care of her. And Wolverine... Again, it depends on the version. If you go with the classic comic books, pre-90, before he became the teacher, and really the only movie you can use. What's that?
So many Wolverines.
Yeah, and the one movie Wolverine that was closest to that attitude is Logan, where he was almost in a forced exile most of his time, but he still... There you go, look at Andrea's face.
Oh, my... Okay.
In the DVD, it came with 9 postcards, and it was the back of them was one big scene. So she did part of the scene and then flipped the others over where they have the individual shots and put them in a poster frame.
And I have it beside my Wolverine claw, which is a real weapon.
It's and then like Batman. Batman's iffy because his whole attitude is, I will destroy a city to save the world.
I don't know if he's that pragmatic.
I think he goes for the greater good. You know, the ends justify the means. I realize I'm not judge, jury, and executioner. Attitude.
Well, I mean, so that's where the crux is for me. Because if it was an end justifies the means things, then he would just use guns. And there are some versions of Batman in the what do they call them? Other verses, the DC lines where he does use guns, whatever. But for the most part, he's got a very hard moral line that he refuses to cross.
Right, because he's trying to save himself from that ultimate step into being what he's fighting.
Right. He doesn't want to turn into the Joker.
I don't think he could ever be the Joker. He could be the Riddler.
Ah,
he's way
he'd
too...
He'd be Red Hood is who he'd be if he went evil. Red Hood is awesome.
Red Hood was Batman going evil. That was his protege, going to the other side. And what could Batman be if he was a bad guy? Yeah, that was Red Hood. So
yeah, that was... I love Red Hood. Hush was really good too. I liked Hush a lot.
I don't think I've read that one. I am pleased with the DC movies. The animated movies are...
Yeah, the animated movies. I think Hush has appeared in something. I feel like I've seen animated Hush at some point. But Hush is one of the best Batman villains, original Batman villains to come out in the past 30, 50 years, I would argue. He's really good.
He's not as good as Condiment Man, but he's pretty good.
Yeah. I like the reboot they did for Catman. Did you see the treatment they've been giving Catman?
No, not
because originally Catman
Batman
was like
Lego movie.
No. So I think they did have a cameo for him in that.
They did.
But so he was originally like a Green Arrow villain that was a Batman knockoff and just like totally lame. And then they rebooted him for a villain book, Sinister Six, I think it was, something like that. Society 6, something like that.
Okay.
And he went like to Africa and became like down with lions and hung out with packs of lions and like now has some sort of vague cat talking ability and is like a genuine badass with like, little claws and shit.
I'm the cat
whisperer. yeah, I was very fond. I was like, oh yeah, dude, this new Catman, like, all right, okay, I'm down with this. Catman is still a lame name, but I'm down with the rest of this.
It is. It's but it's because it's a classic name, and I look at if comics never existed till now or 10 years ago or 20 years ago even, we would not have Spider-Man and Superman. They would have much cooler names.
That's probably true.
Green Arrow would have never been on the table. They revamped it pretty well for the TV show, and we went just with Arrow, and he had a green theme. Okay.
Yeah.
But we all know 80% of heroes and villains would dress all black. That's that.
It makes sense to run around at night.
Yeah, it does. And if you're somebody like Superman, you're not going to wear spandex. You're going to wear something, that's going to be, like a scuba suit type situation or a ski suit type situation. Something skin tight and aerodynamic because you don't want it tearing off when you hit 300 miles per hour in the air. But yeah, we wouldn't have names like Wonder Woman, and you'd still have names like Doc Ock because that's just cool.
Yeah, Doc Ock was a good name.
And the cheesy, Octavius is his real name. Yeah, that's good. But yeah, it's
Well, talking about mad scientists,
what you got?
I wanted to do a little design talking about like the different kinds of adventures there are, right? So, top down, there's campaign adventures. So this would be like the Book of Exalted Darkness is a campaign adventure. There's like a huge narrative inside of this big book that it's expected for you at the end to deal with the celestial hero demigods that kind of rule over the world.
Okay.
Another good analog for that would be like Ravenloft, right?
Right.
You're expected to deal with Strahd if you're going from 1st to 20th level, and you probably think that you kill him at the end, but of course you don't because it's Ravenloft. But that would be another campaign adventure, right? That would be the biggest kind of adventure that you can have.
Right.
The next one down would be mega adventures. Storm King's Thunder is a mega adventure. The Rise of Tiamat is a mega adventure.
Mm-hmm.
These are things where like there are adventure sequences throughout it, but trying to just pull that adventure sequence out, you're not going to have a complete story inside of it.
Do you remember the Dro Underdark box set?
No.
It came with 8 or 12 double-sided maps that were just huge, sprawling, and they were like, quarter-inch squares or maybe even a fifth of an inch square, so 5 per inch or 4 per inch, and they were like 10-foot squares, and you had your standard poster size, the 3.5 foot by 2.5 foot maps, and they were just full of warrens or caves, or it was Underdark done with dozens and dozens of So it was a whole campaign setting with
Yeah, I was about to say, it sounds like a campaign adventure, yeah.
Yeah, we mapped out, we being TSR. But yeah, something like that is, here's something your characters can do forever.
Yeah, it's the most encompassing kind of adventure you can have. It's a whole world that is the adventure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's an expected end that you can see when you're playing it.
And when you're done with that end, you can still see being able to exist in that realm. Just now, you're in a different part of the hierarchy. You're at the top of the.
And there are tons of stories that are going to happen before you hit that capstone. But like the capstone is the crux of the setting, right? Like there would be no Ravenloft without Strahd.
Right.
There would be no Book of Exalted Darkness without the Celestial Heroes, the Exalted part.
So I'm sorry. Go on.
Oh no, it's just like, so that's like the biggest category of adventure in my hierarchy here. The next one down would be mega adventures like Tiamat and Storm King's Thunder and the Imperial Matchmaker and
to put this to a comparison for people, this would be like going through. There was a series of TSR modules that started you out in one small town at first level, and by the end you have gone through the Giant Kings, and you've gone through the Underdark in a series of 3 modules, and Tomb of Horrors was in that line, I think. But yeah, you had this series of 12 different modules that would take you all the way up to super high levels, whatever. But this is all.
So could you play those individually as like single modules in in another campaign?
Yeah.
All right, so then that would be an adventure path. Right?
Okay.
A mega adventure is all one single narrative thread. So you couldn't really jump into the middle of a mega adventure and get the full experience.
Temple of Elemental Evil.
That would be a good mega adventure, yes.
There we go. Okay.
That is definitely a mega adventure. That's a huge thing. It's going to take you a long time to get through. It's very engrossing, and you need the whole narrative to get the full effect.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And mega adventures are very cool, and that's like why WotC keeps releasing a bunch of them.
Oh, and by the way, the reason I keep making these comparisons is so the gamers that have heard of these other things understand how cool your thing is.
Of course.
Yeah, I'm trying to make a comparison so other people go, I don't understand mega.
Talking design right now.
Yeah, okay, go on.
So you have your campaign adventures right at the very top, and then you have your mega adventures beneath that, and then you have adventure paths. Adventure paths were kind of championed by Paizo. They've existed before for sure, where like you were saying, you're expected to go like through here, the Underdark and the Giant Kings and all this stuff. But those are where like there is one huge narrative that you participate in, but you can jump in at any part of the sequence inside of that narrative, or you could take a part of it out and just use it for its own accord, and it'll be a complete story.
Right.
So like it's a very modulated adventure, you might say. Then after that, you get somewhere. So after adventure paths, you have just adventure modules, right, where it's just a single adventure in its own thing. Like, yeah, boom! I got an adventure module right here. And then after adventure modules, you have like, I would say that's where you'd put like Pathfinder Society scenarios for organized play and the D&D Adventures League. And then after that, it's like side quests. And then below that, it's just like, you're having an encounter. There's a troll on the road.
You know who we should have had on? Wasn't it Elizabeth that said she wrote for Tunnels and Trolls?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Definitely have her on.
Tunnels, well, she's one of our regular co-hosts.
She's working right now. She's a teacher.
No, spring break. She's off this week. But yeah,
that's right.
She makes her own independent movies. She has, if I remember correctly, written for Tunnels and Trolls. She has a background, a degree in forensics, so criminology.
Forensic science.
Thank you. Yeah, and just listening, I used to love Tunnels and Trolls because, as a teenager alone in your room, it's hard to get a group together sometimes, transportation. So to have a module that you could run solo was kind of cool. And nobody knew when you cheated. So yeah, it's I as a game master, I've ran very few modules or bought the box sets because budget. But what I usually tell my friends is, yeah, come on in. We're going to play to 3rd level or 5th level, and it's going to be an open sandbox. I'll put some stuff out there so you know what direction you need to go, but you don't have to. At 5th level, I start to... You should have developed your character enough, whether it's its history or its personality along the way, history, previous, personality. You should now start developing your own goals. Are you a treasure guy? Are you a helper and want to rescue people? Are you, out for power and glory? Do you just want to retire to a farm and milk cows? What are we looking at here? Because now the campaign is going to start going into your storyline and become more personalized. Then by the time you hit 8th and above, if you're going to continue a character past this point, I'm giving you what I used to call an epic campaign. It was an actual campaign. This is your character's story from beginning to end. And there are going to be bigger and better challenges, not just more hit points and harder to hit armor classes, but the story itself, your influence across the land. First level, sure, the people in your town know you, or your neighborhood if you're in a large city. By 3rd level, well, you should have a certain radius you can go away from wherever you were born and raised at, and people know your name. By 8th level, you're spanning a fair part of the continent. By 12th level and above, there is chances there's stories about you on the other end of the continent. Because you should have been that mover and shaker. And I do that because I want my characters to feel not only invested in their character in the campaign, but understand they changed the world. What they're doing is shaping the history of the planet as well as the future. And I usually get a really good response, because they get to chill and relax in the beginning, and then it gets a little more serious, and then it gets, invested. It gets deep.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we have Iconics, because I wanted to be able to have written in subplots for specific adventurers into the campaigns, and having Iconics lets you do that. And even if the players don't play the Iconics, then they can interact with that subplot from the other end of it, like they might be the antagonists in that particular story. So,
I like it.
No, for sure.
I like it. And that's something else I try to do with my villains. Once you hit that certain point where you can have a reoccurring villain or a villain on the horizon, like Strahd in Ravenloft or your Iconics, you want them to have that distant goal that they're like, this is a possibility now. We can do this. We just have a lot of work between where we are now and where we want to end.
Oh yeah, and then totally spacing dignity. There's an ability score. So when you play Miss Fukuma, there are 2 extra ability scores that you have in addition to Strength, Dex, Con, Wisdom, Intelligence, Charisma. One of them is called Dignity, which is how well known and how respected you are. So what people think about you, essentially.
There we go.
And then the other one is Haitoku, which doesn't have a good translation. The closest one is Fall from Virtue. So think of it sort of like the dark side. And the higher your Haitoku gets, if your Haitoku is too high and you breathe in the Mist of Akuma, that's when you transform into a Nodetto Oni. But on the way, you get all this extra shit, like you move faster in combat, you become stronger, you can resist damage, but then, zombification.
So what's your favorite, what's the right word? Out of the books you've done, you've hit different genres, different worlds, there's a better word and I can't think of it right now. What's your favorite thing that you've done? What world do you like to play in? Is it the one you're currently working on, or do you have one that you're like, I just love this one?
Good Lord, that's really hard to answer.
And I'm
Miss of Akuma is the one that I have the easiest time writing for.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like one of the adventures, the Cursed Soul of the Scorpion Samurai, was literally from starting to work on it to the end of a week. I did all the maps and I wrote it all and I laid it out, and it was a week, and I sent in the print proof.
Nice. God, you love it when that happens.
Yeah, that's insane. Like Paizo, even Paizo would be like, "What the fuck what crack were you smoking?" Like, good Lord. And it's a good adventure. Like, it gets reviewed well, and nobody's had any complaints about it. I did forget to include one monster that I talk about that's in the core book. I just meant to reprint it in the adventure module. And if you buy it, you get the download for that monster. But, like, yeah.
Nice.
So that's the one the easiest to write for.
Now,
I think I'm most proud of the Book of Exalted Darkness.
Is that the one you like to play the most?
No, this is the one I'm most proud about. because it's magnificent, frankly. And at this point, like I've got this is where I feel like I've mastered everything enough, where I feel proficient in layout and art direction and everything. Where this came together exactly as I envisioned it in my head.
Nice.
Which is, it took me 5 years to get to that point.
And I'll tell you why I ask is I don't like doing the same thing over and over and over again. I get tired with it. And as much as I love to make a new character, I hate to learn a new game system. But as I mentioned, I have 4 or 5 favorites, and the last campaign I was running, which went on kind of a permanent hiatus because life happens, I wanted to play a steampunk world, I wanted to play a superhero world, and I wanted to play Dungeons & Dragons world, medieval fantasy. So what I did is I had all my players make up one character for each world. That is the same character. Now, you could be a dwarf in D&D and be a human in the superhero world, but make the similarities, the physical similarities. You don't have to be 3.5 foot tall, but at least be bearded and burly and gruff, and you have the same name.
Yeah, my characters are.
So we would do a story arc, and then you would shift to a different world. And the plot would continue. There were villains that crossed over also in the same kind of parallel world type feel. So you're still working the same plot line, the same storyline, but now you're in a totally different game system. So when I see something like yours, I'm like, so now I could have one fucking character that can go between each world. And instead of having to go, well, it's a different XP system, it's a different leveling system. So they're each going to level separately. Now I could go, no, you will leave here at 4th level and come out of the next world at 7th level. And again, when I saw your stuff, I'm like, this is why I'm so enamored by Torque also, because it's so many worlds that one person could cross through.
So to answer the question about which one I like to game in the most is the first campaign setting that I made. And that was a great setup for this. So this is called Varanthia Codex.
Okay.
Inside of this campaign setting, there are 6 different campaign settings. So the way it works is that for reasons between the gods, they got into this big fight, and the god of the sea is just like gods of the sea often are, a wrathful little bitch, and he's made it impossible to travel across the oceans from continent to continent. So they've sort of developed in their own little microcosms.
Gotcha.
So one of them is Grithadnus, and Grithadnus is like classic medieval fantasy with a little bit of steampunk.
Gotcha.
There's like a lot of conflicts going on, and the monstrous tribes have sort of banded together with a couple of proficient alchemist goblins, and they're posing a threat to the regular natural order of the human and elven kingdoms, and so on and so forth.
I like it.
That's the first continent. The second continent is called Eurethiel. Luis Loza worked on Eurethiel, and now he works at Paizo. Which is great, because I knew as soon as I read his stuff, I was like, that motherfucker's going places. I'm very, very proud of you, Luis. So anyway, it's like Wuxia. So Mystificuma is Dower and War, and Eurethiel is the shining,
utopia,
favored child sibling. Yeah, it's not a utopia, but it's definitely more upbeat. And victories there aren't Pyrrhic. Like, you can have a real victory there. There's like 3 dynasties of humans that have ruled half of the continent, and the other half is sort of like untamed or occupied by some very militant hobgoblins that are book burners, and there's the whole thing. So there's that continent if you want to have an Eastern type experience. Whatever. And then the third continent is called Trectoiri, and it's predominantly ruled over by Goblinvania, which is diesel punk madness. There we go. There's the map for Goblinvania. That's the capital.
Nice. Yeah. Grand Goblin Station. Nice. Power Tower.
They have about World War II level technology there.
So
they've just developed, not quite atomic, almost there. Like they're on so they've got like World War II bombers that are capable of going across the ocean regardless of what the god of the seas cares about.
Barring your hurricane.
Yeah. Well, even so there's that, and then that's the third one. The fourth one is called the Forever Dark, which is this huge, complex series of underground tunnels that connects them all. So if you do want to travel between continents, you can, but you have to walk. And all of that is this sort of like psionic horrors and Wild West kind of feel.
Oh, sweet.
I'm not done. Oh, I don't have the Veil book with me. Son of a bitch. Okay. So after that one, the Fifth World is just called The Fifth World, and I don't have my Fifth World book over here.
Real quick, shout out to Max. Thanks for joining us. Good to see you, buddy.
What's up, Max?
Now, I'm wondering, now, Max is John, right, Andrea? Max RPG? I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, Max RPG is a guy that runs one of our local comic and game stores, who, if I remember correct, and this is a guy who's converting the back room into computer art stations that kids can use, or I guess adults also need be. So good to see you. Thanks for jumping in on the tail of this.
Hey, dude, check out the Imperial Matchmaker Kickstarter and send me a message if you want to stock it in your store. I'll give you a super good deal.
There you go. Yeah, he'll. We talked about that earlier, and I actually thought of you, John, while talking about it. He does have a way of getting it into stores, which makes it more reasonably priced for you versus.
Yeah, you'll be able to hit your regular markup, but
go.
only like you got to message me for it. I can't put it on the page.
He says he'll check it out.
Where's the... Okay, I don't know where the Fifth World book is, but the Fifth World is this prehistoric... so in Varanthia, there's this prehistoric race that was, at one time, enslaving everybody else. Mm-hmm. And then they just, like, disappeared, and no one knows what happened to them. What they've been doing is carving this gigantic rune on the ocean bed in huge walking cities. And that's what the Fifth World is. You find these underwater metropolises on the beds of the ocean. And then the sixth setting is the Veil. So on the polar ice caps, it's they're tesseract and connected, and all of that is this crazy. There's aliens and lots of robots, but it looks like just a maritime setting. They're all subdued. All the robots are trying to hide that they're robots, and the aliens don't want people to know they're there. And that's Varanthia Codex.
See, I love. Like when I cook, it's steak one night, Chinese the next night, Mexican another night, casserole the third night, something in the crock pot another night. When I game, I want my different worlds. I am a jack of all trades in all aspects of my life, and includes my gaming. So, but yeah, I'd love to give my players a world that they can go from one thing to another without having to change characters, and then you have games sitting on hold, and they love one character more than the other. Instead, they can love the same character and just experience different environments, different realities almost.
And there was we did so much planning for this book. So I really liked Paizo's NPC Codex, and it was just here's a first level fighter, here's a second level fighter, here's a third level fighter, here's a fourth level fighter, here's a sixth, and just all the way through. For the classes, like the base ones in the core book. But they didn't have ones for gunslingers and witches and oracles and inquisitors. So that's what the last third of this book is. Nice. It's just and here's NPCs from all the different places, and here's a gunslinger at 8th level and 10th and 12th and 14th and 20th. And
that's good. Yeah, Tephra did something similar in theirs. In later expansions, they gave you basically, here's a book of NPCs. So I don't have to make it up on the fly.
You were saying that you don't normally run modules, and I'm kind of the same way, which is why I have all these massive campaign setting books. Because I GM, and it's an open sandbox, and I'm impartial. You do whatever you want.
Take a look at the Twitch channel. John just said, if you ever need some artists to practice on projects, let us know. That back room I was telling you about, they have a lot of that kind of stuff. People starting out who have genuine talent, as well as enthusiasm. So yeah, that might be a good person. Drop an email and look at each other's work and see if you can mesh in some way. It's networking.
Yeah, I'm always looking for new art. It's yeah, we'll see.
Absolutely.
Let's see what they have, and it depends on the project too. But yeah, I try to get new artists. I'm actually really proud of my friend Chan. He's still pretty rough, but his character design is on point. I like how he conceptualizes the things that I send him.
Right. It's just a matter of fine-tuning over talent and time.
Yeah, and like, who's a good example of somebody I've been working with a long time? Indy Martin. So here's some pretty good pieces she did for Varanthia Codex.
Oh, I
right?
like it.
These are the gods. Yeah, they're not bad. They're not bad at all. But in comparison, here's what she turned in, I don't know, 2 months ago. Where are you at? Yeah, that's the page I want.
We all remember the... Oh, wow. Yeah,
it's a huge fucking difference.
There was an epiphany somewhere between here and there. Yeah.
Well, no, it was working with me on a whole lot of books, and they all say that working with me is like leveling up because I asked them to do a bunch of shit, and I figured out, like, you know, some of the nuances of art and like how like lighting is important and like obscuring the background through different effects you can use with color and all this other shit. So yeah, no, I'm all about trying to develop artists.
You know, wouldn't it be great in 20 years to sit around with the same group of people that we're talking now and just going, look what we've done over 20 years. Look how we've grown individually. Or as yeah? Andrea?
Max put up a link to samples. So if you want to see some of the work before emailing, there you go.
Yeah. I got it open.
Yeah, I'm loading.
Oh yeah. Whoever's got that crazy E signature has some talent. Who's that? Should tag him. Buddy. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's nice stuff.
And they're starting. Looks like they're starting digital or starting analog and going digital because they got that cross hatching.
Yeah. But look at that, because we're almost done here. We only got 9 minutes left. I want you to plug your stuff one more time, and then I'm going to plug what's coming out next for us here in the next couple days and next week.
Okay. The Imperial Matchmaker Kickstarter is for this book, which is a campaign setting Eastern Fantasy Noir Steampunk. It's called Miss Fakuma. You can get the campaign setting book, and you can get Adventures Companions for the campaign setting book with the Kickstarter. But the Kickstarter itself is for an adventure path. That'll be about 200-page hardcover that takes you from 4th through 10th level in 5th edition D&D around these 10 arranged marriages by the Emperor of Soberin. It's got a lot of intrigue and drama, and it's a sandbox, so you just kind of put the players in it. The days progress, and they participate as they see fit and get into all kinds of trouble. The second book that's part of the Kickstarter is a softcover of Iconics that has builds for all of these emblematic adventurers that the PCs can use themselves as pre-gens or as rivals if they want to make their own characters. And they all have their own special features, like the undead ninja is haunted by his ancestors, and the samurai woman has like a talking prosthetic arm, and it's all very, very cool. They all have their own free PDFs on the project page. Check that out. And then the third book is the Trade War Adventure Path, which takes the existing adventure modules, of which there are 6, and it collects them all into one larger narrative that is connected by warring merchant guilds and shinobi clans and some other very cool stuff that has a pretty big climax.
Very good. And don't forget to check the links here in the chat. And if you're watching this later on YouTube, there should be links below in the description. Also, if you are watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel, as well as go check out the other work in our other shows that are live on Twitch 4 days a week. Tomorrow, we have the Steampunk Piscataway group talking about what they're doing in the future and as they grow and replace the void that happened there. Then Monday, which is our show after tomorrow, our regular evening hours, 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have Cooking and Cannibalism, where we have our own Kevin Crew, professional chef, as well as Stephanie as a guest, and we're going to discuss cooking and all kinds of good recipes. And in the third hour, where we get a little ridiculous, we're going to go into the long pig menu. So that's pretty much that. What else do I... Yes, Andrea?
How many days do you have left on your Kickstarter?
As of right now, there are 11 days left.
Okay.
Until April 15th.
Let me roll back here. It looks like we're still at 40%. So 32.55 out of just over 8,000. So come help that out. Again, just for something that expands, and you could get the other books from his other worlds, mix, match, combine, move, and it's all compatible with, depending which book it is, Pathfinder or 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Mike, thanks for coming on, especially on such short notice, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
It's
I do this full time, and so it's just making sure that I got to bed at a decent hour so I could be cognizant right now.
I went to bed at 6:30, so I did okay. I was up editing videos. But let us know when you have a milestone coming up or something new coming out. We'll bring you back on, whether it's 10 minutes or whether it's the full show, depending what you have available in time and what we have available in space. We'll make it work and we'll get you out there. And this was the inaugural show, so you'll only see growth each time you come on. You'll see more and more people hanging out with us. I think that's... Wow, that was a quick rack up. We still got 5 minutes.
We do.
I thought I had more to announce. I don't remember. I know after this, I'm unrelated to this show at all, related to tomorrow's show. I'm getting on Skype with Victor and the Bully to make sure they could be on tomorrow's show. So if you're a fan of that steampunk music, which is, I don't know, Andrea, how do you describe them? Punk cabaret?
Victor and the Bully?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Just awesome.
And the way they treat their fans and interact with their public, nothing makes me admire somebody more. And
they're great.
They're young, they're beautiful, they're talented, and they're kind. Pfft, what a combo. One day I want to be all 4 of those things.
You could plug the Bloody Semen again.
There you go.
A term you never expect to say to somebody, but yes. Bloody Semen is a band. We played one track of theirs that Mike had.
You played one... That wasn't a Bloody Semen track. That was just one of their band members. They do pirate jig type stuff, obviously being named the Bloody Semen. They are very tongue in cheek, and they're pretty popular in Pittsburgh. If you live in the area, you probably catch them at a show fairly soon.
Do they have a website?
I think they do, but you're probably better off using their Facebook group.
You know what? When you contact them next, tell them to drop me some MP3s so I could play it on Tuesday Tunes. Because I will do whole theme shows on anywhere from...
That's a hell of a scene. Bloody Semen? Mm.
Well, I have all kinds of pirate music because I did Ren fairs for decades and have a lot of that music that I play. Now also Tuesday Tunes will be like yesterday where we did an interview with a musical creator. I don't like to just call them musicians because there's so much more than just that goes into it, especially us indie people that are designing our own covers and... producing everything from A to Z. Electro swing. I will definitely have a full electro swing show at some point in time because I just love that genre of music. I really try to support indie bands anywhere from folk to bluegrass to hip hop and rap
to metal and punk.
Yeah, everything.
That's my favorite.
And you might get some shows, but I will try not to have things like there may be a show where I do Alice Cooper, Elton John, Billy Joel, and everything in between, but most of it is going to be indie music because I want to give all of us folks a chance to be successful and spread the word for you guys. It's what we do here on the Tavern. So, we've got some outro music. Mike, thanks again for joining us, buddy. Hang out for a minute after we disconnect from this so we could just do a quick 30-second wrap-up and reassure that we want to see you again.
All right, yeah. Thanks again for having me on.
My pleasure, buddy. Okay, guys, here's our close and outro. Have a good one. Thanks for joining us in the discussion shenanigans tonight. You are the one thing that makes the show what it is. Don't forget to join us at the Tavern next week. Until then, have fun, keep learning, and be good to one another. Now, raise your glass in good cheer. Enjoy the small moments every day and steamy dreams every night.